recording.
And we're live. Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon,
And I'm Nathan.
and we have another very special episode. We have the 1988 movie Hope and Glory. Nathan, what's your history with Hope and Glory?
This was a phase where I was watching movies because I remember a movie I thought was actually really cool that came out the exact same year was a Spielberg movie called Empire of the Sun,
Okay, that's what reminded me of this too.
starring Christian Bale,
Mm-hmm.
a teenage Christian Bale. And I remember this was out too. And I like both of these movies a lot but they're very different movies.
Yeah, yeah.
So and I
This
later
is like
found
the
out,
hopeful war
yeah,
movie. No, the
hey kid,
complete.
Snickers bar. Yeah, so do I. Yeah, it was-
I think the complete. Well, man, gotta tell my
it's
vacuum cleaner.
vacuum
Yeah,
time.
I don't know why it started to.
It hates our podcast.
I mean, that's not even. I haven't used the app in so long that the schedules may have just like misaligned themselves. Oh yeah, I'm not even. I can't even sign in. Great. Um, Jesus Christ. One moment.
Ah, it's fun. That's okay.
So you know that shit where like, oh shit. You know that shit where you like, hey, my password's saved here, but then when you
Yes,
open an app, then you're and it's not using the Chrome, and it's like, well, we don't know what the password is for this. And it's like, well, neither do I.
yes, I'm very familiar with that. That's why I have a folder on my desk that I give it a weird name, not on my computer desktop, a physical folder printed off that I have to erase as soon as and erase it from the cloud too, which is like not easy, but it has a weird title, but it has all my physical passwords written down. It is 24 pages at this point. And sometimes I just cross things out and write things in by hand because I have to change them constantly
Yeah.
because I don't want to get
So for whatever reason,
identity theft.
the iRobot app signed itself out, and it wanted me to sign back in just now. It's like what great timing. So,
Yeah, good timing. Thank you.
and there is a thing on my phone that will save passwords for apps, but it has to go through Samsung, and I'm using like pretty much Google for everything on my phone because it just synchronizes everything between all my computers and makes it way easier to be productive or whatever. It's like, oh shit, I gotta do this on the go. It's like, oh, you're all good. So, um,
I use some stuff on my phone with the Face ID,
yeah, yeah, that works pretty well.
but yeah, I try not to make my phone a buying portal. There are some things that are set up that way, but not everything.
Yeah,
If I buy stuff, I sit down at my laptop or this computer because I figure, well, I can lose my phone. Someone, but that doesn't really matter. Actually, someone could just steal it no matter what.
yeah, yeah.
I do my
Uh,
best not to be defrauded.
but no, the third movie I was gonna say probably is a trilogy of these movies, and maybe there's even a other ones as well as World War II children coming of age movies. Is have you seen Jojo Rabbit?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Actually, good one. Yeah.
That's fucking devastating and funny as hell.
Yeah. See that? Like Empire of the Sun is unfunny.
Yeah,
It's cool. It's amazingly shot. It's well acted. This movie is trying to be a comedy, but kind of dips in and out. It kind of oscillates in and out
yeah,
of that.
yeah,
But it's actually based on someone's real experiences. So it's like, oh, okay, the real life is not like a laugh track. It's
yeah.
there's things that happen and things that don't. And then Jojo Rabbit is insane, but
Yes,
funny,
but
but in
like
a odd way.
if you ever see a photo of like a kid looking at shoes as someone's standing on a bridge, realize that's going to be a devastating realization later
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, if you let the Flight of the Concords guy, like, I'm going to set something in Nazi Germany in World War II. Like, yeah, this is going to stick with you a while. 'Cause that's that guy, right? That's the because he.
He's worked with them. He's New Zealand, so they're all New Zealand. So
Oh, I thought he was like one of the like main directors and
no,
creators.
he might have done the show. I can't remember. He has worked with them on What We Do in the Shadows, I believe.
That's what I'm thinking. The vampire one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Never mind. Wrong show.
But you know they're all New
Flight of the
Zealand.
Conchords is like a musical act show, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it
Okay.
was just a musical stand-up comedy act, and then it was an
Right.
HBO show for like 2 seasons, and then they weirdly split up, and it's like, huh, that seemed to be going well. Wonder what happened there? Is it animosity between people, or what's going on? Because like
Oh
the
yeah.
one guy who has like the booming voice, he just like became a huge character actor, and the other guy just disappeared. So I don't know what he's doing. You know, and Taika Waititi is just like a huge director. So
Well, it's kind of like the. Now this is from Australia, but there was a rock band called Wolf Mother.
yeah,
That's like, oh, they look and sound like Led Zeppelin or AC/DC, and they're cool.
yeah.
Like these guys are going somewhere. 2 albums broke up, hate each other. You guys are leaving a pile of platinum on the table. No matter how much you hate it, just Allman Brothers that shit. It doesn't matter. Just here's your playlist. Here's $1 million. Thanks. I
Oh man, I was going the deepest I've ever gone on a Spotify like band hunt, and
those are fun.
it's just endless. But I got to bands that I like. Usually, you can trust like when you have on the landing page for a band that the top 10 songs gonna be pretty much, however whatever's the most popular is probably their best song. I'm getting to like they don't even list how many low plays. It just says less than 1,000, which could be 0 or 999.
Yeah.
So that means like fucking nobody's listening to these bands, and there's tons of them. And they got
Oh
like
yeah.
cool album art. Like they must just be local heroes. There's one guy. He's from Montreal. He's called Gloomfather. That's his band. I think it's a one-man band thing. He he does like synth albums, and he recently put out like a country album, and they're all pretty good. But like he just does it in his free time. Like he has a full-time job and a family. And like all his plays are like less than 5,000. It's like this is criminal. So,
Yeah.
but that's the state of music. So, um,
Yeah, I'm there's a guy I listen to, and he suggests like you should listen to these guys, you should listen to those guys, and some of it's real hit or miss, but it is kind of weird music that I like, but I've sort of been out of music for a while.
yeah.
And then he's like, there's a band called A Place to Bury Strangers. It's like, yeah, you should listen to this guy. Oh, they're amazing. And it's basically like distorted rock. It's like it's not industrial music, but it's like imagine if industrial music was like if it was that style, but it was played as if they were playing like regular guitar riffs. Like they weren't just going. Everything's very heavily distorted, including the vocals.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a really cool band. But I think they stopped working together in 2015, maybe, or that's where my
Oh yeah, and all these bands I'm finding like recent releases like 2024, and they have like 5 albums behind them and stuff like that. It's like they're getting less than 5,000 plays. It's like
Oh, yeah.
it's criminal.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they
It's all-
must be finding like either this is like purely a hobby, or they must be like local heroes or something like that.
I don't know. I mean, your ability to produce and do music like on a smaller scale now is better than it ever has been.
Yes, but discoverability is worse than ever.
Yeah, no, it's zero. It's like nothing. You gotta go. Yeah, I have 5 rock albums under my belt. It's like I gotta go on the singing show so I can get a recording contract. It's like that's nuts.
Anyways,
Yeah, back to the show.
hope and glory. Nathan,
Yeah.
your history with Hope and Glory. So did you see this in theaters, or you just see it like in HBO or something like that?
This is an HBO thing.
Okay.
And yeah, so the two movies were this and Empire of the Sun. This one made me feel
I
a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely remember Empire of Sun or just bits and pieces of it. I remember like when he finds like the little liqueur bottles and like the airplane, and I'm like, "What are those? I want those," and never had them
Oh yeah,
because they looked like candy, but they were just it was just liquor, right? Or what the hell was that? Do you remember what scene
oh,
I'm
those are like
talking?
travel bottles of booze. I thought.
Okay, all right, yeah,
Yeah, it was like the little Jack Daniel bottles that are like this big, and yeah, that's what they give you on airplanes.
okay.
When you pay $20 for a cocktail on a plane, they're pouring one of those a thimble full of alcohol in that for you. Those are cool. There's a whole subgenre of people who just collect those. When I buy booze, I buy the Club Saver size where it's like 2 liters. Yeah, I don't the little tiny bottles. You can also get those in like what they call duty free shops
Okay, yeah.
because you can bring those through customs in some places, and other places you can't bring full size bottles. I don't know. There's a whole weird world to it.
Um, so yeah, it was released February 19th, 1988. Um, Director's John Borman. We continue with John Borman. Cinematographer is Philippe Rousselot. We continue with him. He did The Emerald Forest as well.
Yeah.
Which this movie seems like much less ambitious, but it's totally fine because they got to do a period piece, and like you've talked before, like doing a period piece will just eat money away. Just trying to get things accurate and still be wrong. Like that's always fun.
Well, at the time this movie was made, this was the largest set built in England since World War II.
Okay.
Because they just rebuilt a kind of a facsimile of the street he grew up on and then slowly destroyed it throughout the production of the movie. But yeah, that whole street, that was a movie set.
Okay, huh.
Gigantic. It was huge. And they wanted something that like they didn't want to shoot like miniatures and stuff. So they're just like, we're just going to destroy up the street until we're done with this. So there was not a lot of even I don't even think the fire scene was a miniature. I think they just burned part of the set down. So yeah, it was fairly ambitious. It ate up most of the movie's budget.
Okay, yeah.
Because I think this was one that was also shot in order due to that reason.
Okay.
So I believe that's some trivia I read about it, but yeah.
Yeah,
this was
that's always the ambition to shoot in order. It just never usually happens unless there's a specific reason. So, somewhere I was listening to a Mark Maron podcast, and he's like talking about acting, and he just like always he said he always like is terrified asking the director like, "Where am I?" And he means like, "Where's my character in time and place, and what are they feeling?" Because we're shooting out of order. Written by John Borman, like Nathan said, this is basically like a retelling of his own childhood, which there is a sequel to this movie called like for King and Country, or is it Queen and Country?
I think it's Queen and Country, yeah.
Where it's about him, because like John Borman was he in the Korean War, or was he just in the army at the time that was going on?
I think he was in the military at the time that was going on.
Okay. Because that seems to be what that movie's. But that movie shot in like 2014 or something. So
yeah.
The cast is Sarah Miles, David Heyman, and Sebastian Rice Edwards, which I didn't even bother writing people's names down because even though these are like a bunch of British actors, I didn't recognize almost any of them. So
I recognize Clive from watching BBC stuff.
Okay.
Because he has had a massive career, literally worked every year of his life on some kind of BBC thing or another. And the mom in this, Grace, I've seen her in a lot of things.
Yeah, I was looking at some of her backstory. It looked like she did like a lot of like crazy Italian horror movies where she was like naked half the time. So
I've seen. It's weird now she's 83. Yeah. It's like it's a time capsule.
Yeah, because she like got her start in the 60s. So.
Yeah, she started in 58 was she was doing BBC stuff, and because she's 83 now. So that's a little weird. She did more like movies and like British cinema. She also did a lot of TV shows, but not nearly as many. She more would do like it's like a, oh, what do they call those, like special mini series or something,
Okay, yeah.
which had movie like budgets and productions, but it was like 5 or 10 episodes. Basically, what every TV show is now. But yeah,
And this,
back,
she reminded me of Gwendolyn Christie, just not 6'4".
yes, yeah, she does have that look. Yeah,
Well, I mean, I don't. There's a very specific look that she had. Gwendolyn Christie had recently. She was in an episode of Severance, which they don't like play her up as being as tall as she is in that. I was like, is that her? Like, I don't recognize her. She's not in a suit of armor and towering over everybody, but, um, um, yeah, I was just reminded of that. I guess that's everything.
any, if you're a regular watcher of BBC, or you were when you were younger, you know all these people. Well, except for the guy who played the main character. This, I think, this was his only acting role. Was
Yeah.
this?
He has this, and he's like footage in the sequel movie, but he's not in
Yeah.
it. So, and he
So
directed some short movie, but that's his entire career essentially. So,
yeah, Sebastian Rice Edwards. I guess he does like a lot of production, and he still works in like film for the BBC, but not as a
okay,
actor. He does. He's fine. I
oh,
found an interview with him on because he's like 2 years younger than me.
okay,
And I found an interview with him on YouTube. And he's like, yeah, that was fun. But he just never really wanted to pursue acting anymore after that. There's a lot of kid actors that like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore.
yeah. Well, it's
I get
especially in
out
the
of
'80s, that's a perfect response to that thing. So,
yeah.
not many kid actors from the '80s tend to work out well in real life. So,
No. Very different rules.
I'll get into it. We have Act 1. You get some jazz music is playing. We open on a freeze frame of a radio, which looks really weird, especially because of the digital artifacting of the Tubi showing. So,
Yeah.
I had the Tubi thing like pulled up and ready to go, and I just didn't hit play. And Tubi has something in its guts somewhere that if you walk away from it, it'll just hit play and try to grab that advertising revenue as quickly as possible.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because I woke up to it's like I'm pretty fucking sure I don't have anything playing on my TV. It's like so I just ignored it and I thought like, oh, somebody upstairs left the TV on. It's like no, I guess I left the TV on. And Tubi was just playing, other somber British movies about World War II, and it was like some guy like lamenting to his girlfriend that he told everybody that his dad accidentally killed himself cleaning the gun when everybody knows what happens. So like, what the fuck is this? Turn this off.
I don't need to sleep to this.
And then the fire alarms went off. So
Wake up.
We cut to a family photos of a British family at the beach. Then we cut to news footage of World War II in Britain. So this is before like any kind of like air raids are happening. We cut to a theater where a bunch of rowdy kids are like in the movie theater, just like throwing things around and stuff because they're tired of hearing about impending war, because that's what all this footage is about, like impending war. And so it's like, well, either it'll happen or it won't. So they're just disenchanted by it, or what do you call that?
Yeah, they're yeah, how would you say
not
that?
immune, but what's the thing where they're numb to it? There you go. There's one word.
Yeah.
We get a voiceover, which is probably like the weirdest. I don't know. I mean, I guess they do this in other movies. The voiceover only happens at the beginning and at the very end. So
And it's John Borman's voice.
oh, okay, that makes sense then. Okay. So yeah, the voiceover explains that the kids are tired of the warnings of war, but nothing ever happens. The crowd is calmed by the Hop Along Cassidy episode that plays on the TV. Because this is like, yeah, this is like back when theaters had its serials, right? Where it's like a half an hour, like showing of like, of an adventure like show or something like that. But you only saw it in theaters because like television wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah, I believe they did. They did have stuff like that, or they played all day.
Yeah.
Like they got like, oh, we got 5 of these. Because there, I don't know if Like it had to be mailed. It had to be voted over or whatever. So they might play it all at once. I'm not sure.
I mean, that's where like Looney Tunes and the Merry Melody stuff, like that's where it's got its start. Is just like as add-ons to the beginning of a movie.
Yeah.
Like so get the kids to settle down and watch the cartoons before the main movie comes on. Um, of course now cannot be bothered. Like,
No.
I used to like, oh, we're going to the movie theater. It's like we got to get there a half hour early. And then, like nowadays, it's like I might as well fucking show up half hour late. That's when the movie will actually start. So.
See, the movie starts at 7:15. I'm gonna roll in at 7:28, and I'll catch the last trailer.
Yeah.
Advertisement for something I will never buy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, seeing trailers in movie theaters were magic, and now that you have to watch like TV advertising ahead of it really like ruins it. And now that you can just find the trailer online before you ever see it in theaters, like it's ruined too. So it's just a half hour waste of time now. So,
however, have you seen the trailer for Andor season 2, the final one?
Oh,
final trailer.
I've seen one trailer for it. I don't know if it's the final one, so I didn't know of any other ones.
Yeah, well, it just came out recently. Okay. So it's the one where they used rock music.
Oh, yes, I saw that one.
Yeah, that's I don't think Star Wars has ever done that, so I was like, that's cool.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's not going to be in the show. That's fine for advertising.
That would be wild. Yeah. What did you receive this? It's from a signal from a future galaxy far away.
No, they did do it once before. There's that Star Wars Skeleton Key show that did like a version of like Major Tom. But it's like an alien version of Major Tom.
Okay, never heard it. I'll have to check that out.
It's a kid's Star Wars show. It's about like kids stealing a starship and then going off on adventures. So it really shouldn't have come your way anyways. But it's got, who's it got in it? Yeah, it's got one guy you recognize. So I think it's called Skeleton Key.
Is that the one?
Crew. That's it.
Jude Law in it?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah, I've seen pictures of that.
So yeah, the advertising for that had like a version of Major Tom that has aliens singing the lyrics, but you know exactly what's going on because it has the same dips and falls.
Okay.
Right, that's right. The David Bowie song is called Space Odyssey, but that German song that's kind of like along the same lines is called Major Tom, right?
Yeah.
Am I getting that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The original one was done all in German. And then they did a version in German and English with that guy, and then David Bowie did it.
Oh no, they're different songs, right?
Yeah, they are different. They're subtly different.
But like, no, Bowie's came out first, right? And then the German one was the 80s.
I thought the German one was first. I don't know. Could be wrong about that.
Because I thought like Space Odyssey was like 79 or something. Because that would be on. No, Space Oddity. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, Oddity.
Okay, yeah, Space Oddity comes out in 69. So yeah, that's right along with Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Major Tom has to be 80s.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't know, when else is anybody listening to German music except when the 80s?
Well, Rammstein.
Yeah. Oh man, I am not. Google is letting me down. 1982.
Yeah, Peter Schilling did it second. I thought he did it first. Okay, never mind. Yeah, because Major Tom is one of David Bowie's none of his names.
Yeah.
Like Ziggy Stardust.
Yeah, I mean he says it in the song.
Yeah.
Major Tom to ground control. Let's see what we got off. Music has dragged me away once again. Well, there's not a lot of music to enjoy in this movie, so it's fine.
There's the Land of Hope and Glory song.
Let's see here.
There's some old school BBC propaganda. Land of Hope and Glory, Mother of the Free. Shall we extol thee, who are born of thee?
Yeah, even though it's weird. The weird to think about this, like a JoJo Rabbit, and this in comparison, because like there's both people are being propagandized in the movie, and they both seem wrong, but like one of them is correct. It's
Yeah, the people who win. They say history is written by the victors.
like,
Yeah, exactly.
except in America.
Yeah.
um. So yeah, the kids are calmed by Hopalong Cassidy, which I've heard that name before. Nathan, do you know who the hell Hopalong Cassidy is? Okay.
It was just the cowboy, some kind of serial cowboy adventures from that era.
Yeah.
Probably from the silent film era into the speaky era, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Because
Stuff like that, I don't really like. I know like the Three Stooges and like that's like stuff from that era. I think this would even predate that. So yeah, I don't.
I might be around the same time. So I mean, but also remember like this like concurrently like Charlie Chaplin is also doing his thing with the Great
Yeah,
Dictator and stuff like that. So
I've seen that guy too. That's kind of funny.
um, voiceover says December 1939, a kid Billy is playing with toys in the garden where he hears a radio message of Britain is at war with Germany. Air raid sirens go off. Everyone ducks and covers. There's an all clear, and so it's just a test. And so they're. This is like the ebb and flows of worry in this movie. That's just
Yeah.
But everybody just kind of like eventually gets calm. It's like they do keep to the moniker of keep calm and carry on. So it's like,
Well, we're not dead, so
yeah.
yeah. British are very good at suppressing emotions. And then they come out at the worst time. It's like, no, they're there. Just get a few drinks in them, and then everyone's gonna start beating the crap out of each other.
Or maybe stuff with like the teenage daughter. It's like, oh, is that how it is? I mean, I guess British or European, so like maybe their ideas on sex are like way more liberated, but they're still repressed in other ways.
No, they're pretty repressed about sex. They're not like the French or something where they're yeah, c'est la vie. No, they're closer to us.
Well, there's a weird contingent throughout this whole movie about like letting people know. It's like, hey, women are horny too.
Yeah, radical idea.
Which is never something that would be in an American movie at this time, and is still barely in American movies at this time or now.
It's edgy characters now.
But that seems to be like even we discussed like British TV shows with kind of like plain looking women as like detectives having like hardcore sex in their free time. It's like,
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a British thing or a European thing. So.
No, they used to have a saying. What they had a funny saying like "No sex, please." We're English. It's kind of like everyone knew it was going on, but it was like it was. Well, there's a very, or there was at least. I know this from reading books and watching TV. There's a very like loudly spoken misogyny that seems to run through their culture. Like the men are always like talking about the women like, well, there's always something wrong with them, isn't there? And it's like, oh yes, and it's I know in the older times there was like, it was just to be openly misogynistic was like, that means you're a man, so
well, also there seems to be more of a like there's not places to move out to. So a lot of times you're still like living with your parents, and so everyone's just fucking around everybody else.
Oh yeah,
and they can hear it through the walls, and it's just accepted. So.
Yeah, people just kind of look at the ceiling and shake their head because upstairs, like, that's like, it sounds like someone's using a pogo stick.
Yeah.
I wonder what's going on,
Yeah,
but
I hear a slurp sound, and like people coming downstairs and acting like nothing happened.
Yeah. Good morning. Want some toast?
Yeah, because I mean that's exactly depicted in like Train Spotting and a bunch of other British comedies of just like having sex in someone else's house, and they still live with their parents, and you just have to like awkwardly meet the parents.
Yeah, no, that's a thing. Well, I mean that's part of the thing in this movie too, is like it's there's sort of because class depictions and stuff. Or especially in like that country, it's like everyone's just all crammed together, humping and spurting and drinking.
Well, I guess they did seek elsewhere at first because they first just fuck in the rubble of
Yeah.
of broken houses from bombing. So
So you hope they got all the bodies out of there. This adds an element of risk and darkness. Yeah. Well, no, some of this movie, like if you watch, because I watched this after I watched 1984,
yeah.
and because Winston's childhood is set during the
Wait, Nathan Spaz, who's that character? Who's Winston Childhood?
Winston Smith from 1984.
No. I mean, who's the character whose name is literally Winston, last name Childhood?
Oh, I don't know.
Sorry, I'm just doing like I'm making up a character right now. So.
Oh no, it was Winston Smith's childhood from 1984 was. It's like it looks exactly like this, only it was in black and white.
Yeah.
And that's like I don't know. Actually, that was during the 50s, I think, but. Because in that world, like World War II never stopped, and we just started using nuclear bombs everywhere. That's why that world's a mess. But yeah, this very much started to quickly look like, oh, London during the Blitz is just how Winston grew up. Oh.
We cut to Dad. Clive is dad. His name is Clive. I didn't grab the actor's name. So, they're digging a bunker in the backyard, which that's also reminiscent of. Because it's still around this time, there's still like the fear of nuclear war, and like you got to put a bunker in your backyard, which probably didn't end till like the mid '90s, where it's like, well, the Soviet Union's collapsed. That's kind of a ridiculous notion now. So,
Well, and also people figured out like, well, if you can't like have a way to get rid of sewage and store literally tons of food, like you're not gonna make it, you know. And really, you really want to do is shoot your neighbors anyway. So this is your chance. A bunker, just go out and shoot your neighbors and die of radiation poisoning.
The family's hanging out and they listen to another Churchill broadcast. There's worry as the men are like called into duty or something like that. I missed the specifics of it, but it makes it seem like Mac and Clive are going to join the army, and then, but they were in the army in World War One, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But then Mac doesn't rejoin, but then Clive ends up going to it. But for there's a moment it seemed like everybody's getting called into duty, but then Mac just doesn't have to do anything. I can't remember if there's a reason or not.
It's not specific, but at that time you could be disqualified from service for really stuff we don't have anymore.
Okay.
Like, oh, did you have like, some kind of disease as a child, or you're over, because back then if you were over the age of 40, you were just like, oh, just go dig a grave, grandpa, especially like British 1930s 40, like that was an old man. Yeah, so
well, I mean, the guy who plays Clive in this movie, he's like my age in this movie when he's doing this movie. So, which he looks old, but his skin is actually quite smooth. He just looks. Yeah. That's because British people just look old all the time. So
yeah,
they all like the British are like the weirdest, ugliest people with like the shining diamonds every once in a while.
Yeah,
they all have like big head overbites and like thinning hair and pear shapes or gauntly thin, and then you have people like Henry Cavill or it's just like,
what's the other guy's name? Benedict Cumberbatch or something. It's like, what? How did this happen?
Or like I can't even think of like
my favorite's Michael Fassbender.
Yeah,
it's like, what is he, German? He's like, even worse, German and Irish. Like, oh no, what does that mean? What does that genetic tree form? It's like a beautiful man.
He's a fascist and a revolutionary all at the same time. Yeah. He's a fascilutionary. But yeah, of course, also even if a British person is pretty, like their teeth situation is always going to be a thing. So
yeah.
And I don't know if that's played up here or if this is just everyone's actual teeth. It's kind of upsetting.
I don't know. I've heard I've heard them talk about. See, it's not part of their national programs.
Yeah, it's like extra. So, but like it's the same and same here too. We just more concerted effort. So you better.
Oh, we have the best dentistry in the world. I've had foreigners work.
Yeah, but it's never. But like when you have a healthcare plan, there's never and that covers dental. It's like you have a healthcare plan and you have a dental plan.
Yeah. No, it's not all inclusive. I've dumped a bunch of money in my mouth. Most of my genetic antecedents are from the British Isles, so most of my teeth are not the original equipment.
I got lucky
Yeah.
because
Yeah, my son.
I have one tooth that's just kind of angled, and they wanted to have me have braces and all this other shit. And then when we didn't have money anymore, they're like, "Oh, never mind." It's like,
Yeah,
okay, so we didn't need it in the first place. Okay, whatever. So,
yeah, my son I needed to pay for, well, Uncle Henry paid for he needed like a retaining thing for his bottom. It's
yeah.
like that was it. Everything else was perfectly straight. Mine, it was like, oh, we have to. It's like, well, we have to build a Terminator robot for you because your mouth is a wreck, and some of that was my fault. But but when I actually did start taking care of it, they were able to have it.
I'm kind of I get stomach aches from brushing my teeth, so I'm not the greatest at my dental upkeep, but I always get the best dental tools that a home person can have. Uh,
Yeah, I'm in that category too.
so I like I kind of make up for that, but like I have been for how much for how lack of care I give my teeth. I am lucky, genetically lucky with my teeth. So
Yeah, that's but like I remember I was listening to Ricky Gervais and who's the big tall guy that used to be with him all the time?
yeah, I know what you're
Uh
talking about, but
yeah, he was talking about they were talking about that one time because Ricky Gervais was like, yeah, when I started making Hollywood money, my teeth were all fixed. The other guy was like, yeah, me too. It was like $10,000. It was crazy. But you go to Los Angeles and you're like, yeah, we'll hook you right up. But he was talking about how like his parents and grandparents, it's like, oh, your teeth rot out of your head at 40 and you go get dentures because the government does pay for you to get dentures over there.
yeah.
So it's like, yeah, everyone just lets their teeth rot out of their head and they get dentures. You come to America and people are smiling and it's like a headlight in your face. It's like, wow. Yeah, but not in Ohio. It's like that's just Los Angeles. Everywhere else it's much darker. But yeah, he was saying like that was just a thing there. And I mean, we've had family members that were working over there and it's like, "Oh, I got to get a filling." It's like, "You have to drive to London 5 hours to get a filling?" Yes. It's like, "Where's all the dentists?" It's like, "Not here." Guy's in America. It's like, huh, okay, interesting. Now this was
Well,
20 years ago,
yeah,
so I don't know.
I think it's basically become like America there, where it's like almost every. I think there is national dental outfits, but there's a lot of private stuff, and that's basically where you have to go. So
Yeah, yeah. I have a generational relationship with the guy who fixed all my teeth here. It was weird because my wife took care of his mom when she was dying. Was so we're like, oh yeah, we've known these people for 25 years. I have 25 years worth of teeth in my head from this guy. And the top ones look really nice. The bottom ones, I kind of like. I was like, is anyone going to see the bottom ones? Not really. I said, well, let's just do the tops then. That's why I
um,
don't get in fist fights with people. It's like, this is too much fun. I can't do this.
fight bite.
Yeah.
I was
Well, it is titanium veneers, so it's like, I guess if they punched me and just broke the surface off, it'd look like I had metal teeth, like a machine or something. It's like, but it
um,
went away.
we cut to Bill falls asleep to a makeshift radio. I think it's one. It's like a bunch of wind up windings, and he has some headphones. So which
Oh yeah, that's like a science project radio because
yeah.
I've made one of those once.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah, they you have to have a lot of AM signals going around, which
Yeah.
they doesn't really exist much anymore. But yeah, you can catch AM signals with those, and like it runs off of like mine ran off 2D batteries, but it was cool. It was just like, oh, you just set up this thing and you have this like antenna that looks like a Jacob's ladder,
Yeah.
and then you can rotate. You have one thing wrapped in copper this way and one thing wrapped this way, and then you have the little bent wire thing, and you kind of tune it until it captures a signal. But it's mostly powered by the signal it captures, so you can have it all. It's just a way to teach kids about electricity and stuff.
Uh, so here he has a dream of his dad dying in World War I. I think.
Yeah,
Him and his
it's a
uncle.
Pink Floyd dream.
um, Is Mac an uncle, or is he just his Bill or Clive's friend? Are they
I assume
brothers?
they were friends. I thought that's what I got out of it.
Because doesn't or so maybe Mac's not in this dream. He goes up. He's like uncle, uncle. So maybe I'm thinking of a different guy. Because Mac is the other like main character that's supposed to be like the unrequited love of um crap. What's her name? Grace.
Yes.
Well, it's also implied that like Grace is their daughter, but Clive had a job, so he became her father. So in the dream, Bill tries to wake his dead dad and uncle, and they don't. Um, we cut to Clive gets drunk and joins the military, and then some weird friend who's like constantly waving in the window, like we just basically have like a Mr. Bean moment here where he like closes his hand in the door and he's just like impossibly running alongside the car door like
He's doing 40 miles an hour next to the car.
with
Yeah.
just a stupid grin on his face, and then eventually like I guess because Clive's drunk, Bill has to be like I think his hand is in the door. So he opens the door and then we did like he calls him like stupid for some reason. It's like you've just joined the army and you've already ruined your hand, and I don't even think we see this character for the rest of the movie.
No.
It's just a comical moment. So
Yeah, that's what this movie has. Is it's like it tries to have these comical moments,
yeah,
but sometimes it's kind of hit or miss because I believe it's like again it's from it's under the thing of like based on a true story. It's like no, it's based on his memories and trying to shoehorn things in. Like, wouldn't it be silly if this happened? But like I said, real life is rarely slapstick.
yeah.
And it's not really funny for the main character because it's like real life's funny when like someone falls off the ladder but nobody's paralyzed and then I'll laugh, but it's like but not if someone's paralyzed. So
But yeah, that's the juxtaposition that this movie tries to weave. So, which in dark moments there are things of humor,
yeah.
so,
Oh yeah, you gotta laugh because otherwise you just scream. Yeah, it's like
we cut to Clive and Bill working on the car. Grace is disappointed he joins, but back up, but then she kind of lets it go in the moment. There's even like there's like this little bit where he kind of gets handsy with her.
yeah.
Which like they seem like, oh yeah, they're gonna go off and have sex, and even like Bill's like, oh, mom and dad are gonna have sex. But then
They're gonna make beast with two backs.
But of course, this is a coming of age story because there's just gonna be sex, in the wind everywhere because that's what, like young people are gonna be into. Like, what's that? What's going on?
Oh yeah, I want to know about this. It's either this or play with lead soldiers.
Okay, was that lead or is that what when they call things tin soldiers, or is that a different thing?
Yeah, I mean they are
lead and tin the same thing essentially.
Tin is an alloy of lead, I believe.
Okay, all right.
I just call them lead soldiers because it sounds funny and dangerous, but it's probably is tin because I think even back then they knew just handing kids raw lead.
Well, I remember that was a thing in what is it, The Patriot? Because he has like lead figurines that he melts down and makes into bullets for the muskets.
Okay.
So I mean, but that's in like the 18 whatevers or whatever.
Yeah.
Then we cut to Clive teaches Bill some cricket pitches, which here they're just like catching the ball back and forth. So it's very akin to American stuff, but you just don't have a mitt. Which I'm always kind of like weirdly impressed by anybody who catches a ball without a mitt, because like I know how fucking much that hurts.
Especially a hard wooden ball or something. I'm going to rifle this at you. Tin is its own metal. I'm sorry. Tin is its own.
All right. But like, I mean, that shit even hurts when you have like a mitt. So
yeah.
And
cricket is not a game I can even pretend to understand.
No.
So.
I mean,
I've
I
never
can pretend to understand.
American sports, so let alone the
I mean,
overseas.
there seems to be like a sort of home run boundary thing where like
Yeah,
if you hit it over this, then that's like basically more points. And basically, yeah, you can just like, you know, an inning or whatever can go on forever until you have to stop them by hitting their wickets and knocking it off.
yeah,
That's about as much as I understand because like I know there's like classic cricket games where like this one game lasted 3 days, and I'm like that sounds like the sport is completely mismanaged. So.
yeah. Something you really have to get drunk to watch.
Or there's some is there some like some mythical like almost like mythical thing they call it the Ashes. I think it has something to do with like Australian and British cricket where it's like one team destroyed the other one so much that they took the wickets and burnt them into ashes, and it's called the Ashes. Like whenever they face each other or something like that. And it's huge in India as well. It's another one of those, like it's not like soccer where it's like it's actually huge everywhere. It just seems to be very huge in, places the British took under
Yeah,
their control. So
it's really big in the former like empire.
yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, watching like clips of crickets, it's always fun just to try to like figure out the context for any of it, and you just have to be like, you just have to listen to the reaction of the crowd and just kind of like, yeah.
That seems exciting.
But that's the same thing if you just showed anybody around the world football. It's like, why are they standing still? It's like, hold on, they're about to murder each
Yeah, this why is this game not flowing?
other. Because it's a car crash of a sport. It's got about going 0 to 60 into a wall and then getting back
Yeah.
up and doing it over again.
The only thing I learned know about cricket is I learned from Shaun of the Dead that cricket bats are very effective anti-zombie tools. This looks like a large flat paddle
Yeah, yeah.
with a fairly effective handle on it. Don't know what you do with it, but it looked interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like baseball. Is like you have the pitcher, and they're trying to hit those three little things behind it, or knock the little T things that go across them. They're trying
Yeah.
to knock those off, and that's how you get outs or something or whatever it's called. And so the batter is defending those wickets, and so he has to hit the ball away. And when he hits the ball away, they run back and forth between there and the opponent's wickets, and then that scores a point every time they go back and forth. But they can be basically like baseball. If they're caught running in between the wickets, they can basically be tagged out if
Okay.
if they get greedy. So like that's parallels between cricket and baseball, but there's still like lots of other stuff I don't understand. So
Cricket bats, not cheap.
But yeah, I think this is when Clive's teaching Bill some cricket bitches. I think this is where he talks about the googly, which is a ridiculous thing that will pop back up at the end of the movie. Be like the cap to this movie. It's like that's so stupid, but it's sweet as well. So
It's fun. Yeah.
we cut to its next day. The kids see Clive off. Bill's reticent, but eventually he kind of sees him off with some catch, and so that's the best he can do to like, all right, Dad, don't die. I have that being in Act 1. We got Act 2. Grace and the kids are going to a train station. They're letting the children go to Australia without their parents, which I didn't know this was a thing. So.
Oh yeah, happened a lot actually. A lot of times they were sent to the country. Yeah, if people were lucky enough to have relatives that were wealthy enough to live in the country, you could send them out there. But yeah, the lower class, working class people, a lot of them sent their kids to Australia and the other parts of the empire to hide out.
Which like the parents didn't go with them. It was just exclusively the children are
Yeah,
sent out there.
the parents were needed at home to
Yeah, fight the
war
war
effort or whatever. Yeah.
Even
By the way,
though
this is like a horrible time to be alive. What the dad was doing with the family car, he was putting it up on blocks and taking the wheels off because they weren't going to be able to drive it anymore because they couldn't get gasoline
Oh, okay. All right.
going towards the war effort. And those tires back then, if you parked for any length of time, and they got flat spots in them. They're ruined.
Oh, okay, huh?
So he was putting it up on blocks because that. So yeah, it's like even if you lived out in the country, how'd you get back and forth? just walk for miles, I guess. Yeah. No, that was really a thing because London, especially, was subjected to a pretty comprehensive bombing campaign.
Yeah.
And psychologically, it was devastating. That's why, like, Bomber Harris and the guys that ran Bomber Command, when it was time to turn around, it's like, can you believe what they did in Dresden? It's like, yes, I can believe it. Dresden, I absolutely believe it. It makes sense because they were subjected to so much of that for so long.
That was what Bill Burr was talking about when he was making fun of Elon Musk on his podcast.
Yeah.
He used to say, like, because he's like, yeah, this guy's paper thin. He's like a Hitler fan or whatever. And he's like, do you know what the crazy shit that we had, the atrocities we had to do to the German people just to stop this motherfucker?
Yeah.
And they did worse things. Like, weren't even worse by comparison, but we destroyed entire families and cities to stop this.
We melted people down to powder. Civilians, not enemy combatants, civilians. Yeah, you don't want to get that shit started. It's because once the killing starts, it's like a fire. It's like, oh, the woods are on fire. What are we gonna do? Yeah, you don't want to put people's back against the wall, because then things that were unthinkable before become necessary. I mean, we made like experimental prototype weird weapons that, like, hey, this can incinerate everything for 3 miles. Yeah, let's drop it. Let's see what happens. You would never do that in peacetime. You wouldn't even detonate it in the desert. It's like, this might be too evil. But like, now drop it on Japan twice. Do we know what it's going to do? Yeah.
Yeah, we set one off in our backyard. We're good.
Yeah. Here's the thing with that. It's like, because I know there's all kinds of debate back and forth about why we did that. It's like, we knew what it would do. We had already done worse.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I would have
bombing of Tokyo.
Yeah, I would have rather been incinerated in a second than have all the air pulled out of my lungs in Tokyo.
But the nuclear weapon was, it's one bomb. Look at what it does. The resulting effects. So that was just purely just a psychological campaign, which I'm not sure if they accounted for, but that's what ended up pushing things over the edge. It's like, oh, they're just going to do more of this? Like, we better surrender.
Well, it was kind of a bluff.
Yeah.
Because it was like, what was it, Truman? Like, he made public statements hinting at, we have hundreds of these things. No, they had like 4 more that might have worked. It's we don't know. But they were like, oh, we can do this over and over. But that was mainly aimed at Russia. It was like, don't get any ideas that you're going to do the East and West Germany thing in Japan. Japan is ours. We have big guns. We have the big bombs now. So, yeah, no, nothing good about all that. But yeah.
But yeah, as they're letting the kids on the train, which Dawn doesn't get to go because I'm guessing she's too old because she's a teenager.
Yeah.
What is she, 15? Because that's upsetting now, but I guess it was fine then. So.
I'm not sure. I assume 17.
No, I think it's less than that.
Yeah, I was trying not to like pay attention. I was like, yeah, she's 17.
But
you got to remember, like, in the 1920s and 30s, 80% of the people that got married were like 16, 17 years old. Like, that was just normal.
Yeah, it was, that was like, to be sexist, that was a woman's job to get married.
Well, yeah.
Not exclusively, because obviously, like, there's tons of jobs that women. I mean, even Queen Elizabeth, she was like putting cars together during World War II. So
drove supply vehicles and ambulances. Could drive very well. Actually, she loved to do it all her life. She used to drive presidents around on the property in a Rolls Royce. She's like, I love this. It made an impression on her.
Yeah.
Because this was the time that changed.
Yeah.
This was really changed. Like, women just stay home and get pregnant and make biscuits. It's like, no, because all the men are. World War I kind of altered that too, but World War II really, like, there's no men left. You have to. There's like crippled men and men that can't fight, but yeah, you have to have women in the workforce. And then once they got a taste of that, they're like, oh, I mean, I can have my own money and some guy's not beating the shit out of me. Like,
Yeah.
this is good. No, back to the kitchen, ladies. And it's like, yeah, we've been fighting that ever since. But yeah, this really showed that, like, yeah, if we kill all the men, it's got to have somebody at home to do all the stuff.
Yeah, our character's supposed to be 15 in this movie, so.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Well, it's only weird because it's like the Canadian dude is like has to be at least in his early 20s, so it's like that's like a 7 years difference.
Yeah.
Which again, like you said, all the men are off to war. There's this Canadian bloke here, so I guess somebody's got to be there. So, but also she's in school and she's not seeking the other like. Or would 15-year-olds be conscripted into the army at this time?
No, I don't. I'm trying to think of what they have. I've read so many books about, like, the British home front during World War II is a fascinating time just for the people that stayed home.
Yeah.
Because you had, like, all the old guys either that were like in their 20s or 30s in World War One, or just the old guys that grew up in Britain. Like, they all kind of wanted to be a part of it. But, because they were like, could be like fire marshals, or and they had what was called the Home Guard, which was basically outfitted as if it was the army, but it was all like 50 to 70-year-old men.
It's how it's depicted here. Like all the MPs are like 50-year-old guys that can barely take a German fighter pilot who's like readily surrendered. So.
Yeah, they're very like, go get a sledgehammer. It's like, what are you gonna do? But yeah, no, so I know they had, like, everyone wanted to be in, it's like, I want to do my part, but it's like, well, you're 70. Like, well, we can give them a rifle. Came down to it. If, like, the homeland was being invaded, it's like, yeah, you guys are going to have a purpose. Thankfully, that never happened to them. But so I know that, like, yeah, anyone who was able-bodied, like, they had a mission or a job of some kind. They all took it very seriously too, because they didn't like what happened in World War One, and they're like, we don't want to do this again. We want to do our part, and this is a very different time. This is much more and less cynical time in a lot of ways, because people were very cynical back then too. You'd be surprised how anti-war people were in America all through World War II. They just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But people were always
once we won the game, we act like we were fans all the time, the whole time.
No, people in America are like, this is an overseas problem.
Yep.
This is not, we can sell oil to Hitler or the British. It doesn't matter. They're both the same. A lot of people here believe that. Especially a lot of businessmen here believe, like, hey, yeah, Hitler's fine. He's anti-communist. We love that. It was like till the other stuff came out. It's like, oh yeah, shut up. We didn't say be quiet. We didn't know about the concentration camps. Like, yeah, he did. He said he was going to do it. He wasn't coy about it.
So yeah, as the kids are about to be put on the train, Grace suddenly wants them back, and then they are collected. And because they cross the line, she changes her mind again because they cross the line. She's the lady, like, distributing tickets or whatever, says like, no, you got to go through the process again. So then they just leave. It's like, yeah. So for a moment, I was like, oh wow, is this movie going to take place in Australia? I didn't think that was going to happen, but it does not.
Yeah.
So
this scene in the movie is one of the most effective, though, because it really captures. Can you imagine these are your kids, and just over a PA system, they're just blandly saying, do this, go to this rail dock, go to here. And it's like, it's all being done very pro forma, but it's like, I'm sending my kids 8,000 miles away to, like, a place that may or may not be invaded by the Japanese Imperial Army. Because at that time, America wasn't in the war. It's like, can we defend Australia from the Japanese Navy? We don't know. So yeah, it's like, and everyone's being like, very like, you must fill out these forms, you must do this. And it was like almost endearing. Like, no, if we're going to die, we're going to die together here. I don't want to send my kids to the land of poison spiders, and sunburns and everything else.
That's also the weird thing that this movie like parallels in weird ways is like all the Harry Potter movies.
Yes.
Except these are just grimmer versions of it. I mean, these precede it, but there's like, but also I'm guessing that's just this and that are just all just British mainstays because that shit never changes. Like, we can build whole new cities, but like Britain's Britain and they just keep everything. So
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you got to remember too, a lot of this stuff, it's like it's stuck in a lot of people's minds, even people that grew up then and even people now, because sadly it was really like this was the end of Britain as a like a global superpower.
yeah,
It's like they were being just beaten bloody everywhere, and it's like they never believed that was possible.
yeah,
And then it became like, well, is America going to come? Surely America will come to the rescue. And it's like, yeah, it's thousands of miles away, and they have their giant colossal continental empire. They may or may not, but it's like, because we were just like weird like rich farmers back then. It's
yeah.
like, yeah, they can build a lot of stuff, but we don't know much about them, and they don't know much about us, so that's why Britain has always kind of been, even tales they tell now, it's still kind of centered around this time and what happened now.
Yeah.
Uh, what happened then, because really everything that's gone on since then, I mean, has not been like great for them. I mean, they've modernized and they've seen periods of growth and like music and all that. But as far as being like a world power, like that's sort of like, Thatcher in the 80s was kind of the last time it's like we can fire nuclear weapons and fight people ourselves too. And it's like, no one would believe that now if they said that. If Keir Starmer came out and said we're storming Russia through Ukraine, everyone would be like, all right, good luck. It wouldn't stick. So
But I was just like recalling, like in Harry Potter movies, they have like the train station where like they fly through the brick wall to go to Hogwarts, and that was reminiscent of this scene.
mhm.
And then there's the closet under the stairs, which that's where they, his foster parents force him to live in Harry Potter movies. So I was
Yes.
like, oh yeah, that must be a thing. That's why it's here. Um, which reminds me of like problems we have at work when the capital decides like, hey, there's this storage room you're not using. Like, why don't we convert it into a patient room? It's like, that wasn't built for ventilation, right? It's like, we don't care. It's another bed. It's like, cool. All right.
We'll call that the fart room. Have you ever seen those videos of people on YouTube that like have that section in their house? Like they
uh-uh.
have a two-story home and it's of course has the understructure for the stairs you
Yeah.
walk up.
Well,
And they're
we technically had one in Wabash.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And they wanted to make it into like, I want to make it like Harry Potter's room. Like they think that's cool or something. He was basically kept as a prisoner
Yeah.
there by abusive step parents. It's
Yeah.
like, that's not something nice to remember. Like, I want to be in Harry Potter's dungeon room. But there's people on YouTube that like, we're going to use carpentry to make this happen.
Yeah.
And it's in a modern home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, huh, okay. That's weird.
I like when they make the hidden rooms. Where, like you push a
Yeah.
bookcase and opens up, and it's like here's like a like bar that's hidden away somewhere. So
Oh, yeah. I've thought about doing stuff like that. But I don't need to. I can just openly have a bar.
yeah. Um.
On a speakeasy in the 30s.
We cut to its night. Grace wakes Billy for the air raid sirens because apparently it wasn't enough to wake him up. Because again, they're sort of like numb to this stuff.
Yeah.
The family prepares to go in the shelter, but they don't because it's cold, and so this is really hide under the stair closet. Although at least I can fit like 3 children and an adult. So
Yeah.
and like
They weren't big fatty Americans, about 100 pounds. Like you could stack them in pretty thick.
I don't know. Like I kind of feel like that under the stairs would probably be. I mean, that's like if there's a tornado, like that's where you'd go if you didn't have a basement. So
Yeah.
that seems like better than the dad dug a hole in the backyard. I
That
mean,
was always filling with water.
yeah. And I know like the house is more of a target, but at least you have more stuff over your head. So
Yeah, but you got to remember they're dropping either a 250 or a 500-pound bomb from a plane. So
yeah, I guess the
yeah,
house is. I guess being in the house creates more shrapnel then. So
yeah.
and resonates the blast wave. So
Waiting for the blast is worse than the blast, and that's kind of what's portrayed throughout this movie. Everyone's waiting for the blast.
yeah, he's like counting off stuff because you hear like flat cans going off, then you hear planes overhead, and then the bombs dropping, and he's like counting in between stuff. I'm guessing he's counting how long it takes for the bomb to fall or something like that. Or
Yeah, you can tell by the sound and the loudness, like distance.
okay,
Because if they're dropping out of the planes, like the Bombay opens and they're dropping like one after another, you can kind of like 1,000, 2, 1,000, and then 6, 1,000, boom, it goes off. And then you count to 6 again and it gets louder. It's like, no, that plane was on a track towards us
Okay.
instead of like being further away. And the British never, or I'm sorry, the Germans never had heavy bombers. It wasn't like the crap we were doing, where it was like bombs away and like 500 bombs bottom. They only had they had one heavy bomber. I think they used it in Russia,
Yeah.
the Soviet Union. But yeah, they were mainly using like dive bombers and other stuff. They had medium bombers. They didn't have like the like we had stuff flying in the air called the Super Fortress. Yeah. It was just I don't know how many bombs they dropped.
We bombed in daylight. We were the most accurate, and we used the most bombs possible. It's like it's pretty deadly. So.
Yeah, that was the difference.
And the British were like night snipers with their planes, like fly at night, hit some stuff. We don't care what the hell happens.
Well, that's what the Germans always said. Like when the Americans come, you could see them, you could hear them, because it was very. I've heard that over here when they fly the bombers around here. I'm trying to imagine 200. But they always said like the Americans, it was always like we didn't like it, but it was fair. They were like, stop what you're doing, or we will continue to do this. The British were like, oh, they were dropping napalm bombs with 3-hour fuse delays on them, so they kill more people. And it's like they always knew the British, it was more personal, where the Americans, it was almost scientific.
Yeah.
It was like that. Yeah, they just want us to stop, so we don't hate.
Well, yeah, we didn't want to like. There's no reason to harass. It's like if we stop the machine that's building the war machine, then it stops it. So let's hit the fucking target. So,
yeah. That's why, like, I've read all those books about the fall of Berlin and the fall of Germany, and they would shout at people in German like, "Run towards the White Star, not the Red Star." Don't run towards the Union Jack. That's not as bad as the Red Star, but you'll probably be killed. But they were always like, "Go to the White Star," because it's like they look the most like you and they're least likely to kill you. It's like and they're telling children this. Yeah. Like, that's terrible. What a hellhole.
So yeah, Dawn can't handle like the anticipation, like she feels like she's about to die, and then she runs outside, even though they were previously the cold kept them out, but I guess she has adrenaline now, and she's just like treating it like it's a rainy day or something. Like, yes, come on, drop the water pellets.
Yeah, it's like the school bully. It's like anticipating the punch is worse than the punch.
Yeah.
Because after the first time I got hit in the face, I'm like, oh, okay, this is what this is like. So now I dig a punji stick, a punji spike trap. So it's like, okay, I know what a punch is like.
There's a house
guy.
Always. The regressor is always the aggressor. There's a house fire down the street. Bill finds some shrapnel in the fence, like on their fence.
Yeah, it's like stuck in the fence.
Yeah, he's like, it's still hot. Which it would be way hotter. He would not be able to hold that shit.
Oh, it'd be smoking hot. Yeah.
But it's just a moment for like the weird goings on of children ravaging through rubble of their neighbor's home. So,
well, it kind of shows like the children can't adapt to anything.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, unexploded munitions become like, this is a toy. Adults would be like, God, run away, because the adults understand consequences.
Yeah. Grace grabs the kids as like the fire's going on. They watch the fire brigade try to put out a house fire. We cut to Billy goes out. It's the next day. Billy goes out scavenging and looking at the destroyed buildings. He hears someone fucking in the rubble, which I'm guessing that was his sister. So, because
now that kind of threw me, because I thought it's like, oh, he's gonna find someone hurt.
Yeah. No, that's what. Yeah, they definitely play that up as first. So.
Oh, you're like always being crushed by rubble, and it's like, no, he's having loud sex that like nobody ever really has. Portrayed that way in movies. It's like, oh, okay,
this is more performative than that.
Yeah.
Bill is late to school and gets wrapped on the hands. Which that was
point he can't pray.
Yeah.
He can't cross his hands to pray. He's been beaten so
Which,
savagely across
yeah,
the
that's
night.
always something I associate with like a Catholic school, but this is like the public school in this situation, right? Or is this
Yeah.
supposed to be a Catholic, or is it just one
No,
and the same?
it's a public. Yeah, it's the yeah. What do they call it in England? If you went to the because it was if you went to the Christian Brothers, that was their Catholic schools, but their public schools were just as bad.
Okay.
Everything was beat. It was all beat to children's schools, and your parents never said anything about it. Like, oh well, that's the way.
The headmaster or the priest or whatever he is really pushing the propaganda on the children. Which this like, again, it's like, yeah, these are the good guys in this movie, but it still like felt bad. So it's like this is. So I
Oh
remember,
no, these people's lives suck. This would
yeah,
be a nightmare to have to live in.
um, I remember one time where I was in training out in Camp Pendleton, and like you would just and I was still in boot camp, so I just went to a church like meeting just to get away from the drill instructors.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, we're going to church. We're religious now.
Yeah, because
What is it? No atheists in foxholes
yeah,
or basic training? Is that the rule?
um, and yeah, and then like this. So this is like more informally, like you're sitting on some benches and like a priest comes up and gives like a sermon or whatever, and like this guy's talking about like, yeah, we're fighting in the end times. Like it's like, oh, this guy is a fucking asshole. It's like he's just telling young impressionable people like, yeah, be as violent as possible because like we're all gonna come to Jesus. Like you're a fucking piece of shit.
These were they were so it was basically the same logic of like they were telling medieval knights during the
Hmm.
crusade. It's like you fight for God, so you fight for glory, like that kind of.
Yeah.
I'm glad to know that's still going on. That's good.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that was embarrassing. I really felt angry about that, so I never went back to church again. So,
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, it actually does. I mean, I guess that shouldn't surprise me that a grown man would sit up there and say that to people.
yeah,
I mean,
a presumed man of God.
yeah. I mean, you definitely couldn't say like be a lamb of peace because it's like, well, that's clearly not the Marines' job.
Yeah.
But you could maybe like throw in there like exercise mercy and grace because when you're fighting someone from the advantage that the U.S. Marines have over almost any enemy on the field, you are exerting almost godlike power, maybe using discretion. But no, that didn't come into the
No.
conversation. It's like smite thine enemies,
Yeah,
send hell.
lay waste, create the wasteland to make hell on earth. So
Yeah, and this is the God part of this.
yeah.
Okay, I mean, I thought the jihadis were bad. Holy shit, doing the same thing. What? No, that would be rank hypocrisy.
We cut to a teacher's giving a lecture about the British Empire. This is like a terrible teacher. Because she is like just she hates the children, and she hates that they don't want to learn from her because she's a bad teacher.
Yeah,
And she's also pushing propaganda about like how great the British Empire is because look how much land we have. So
the sun never sets on the British Empire.
there's a scramble during an air raid siren. They run in a shelter. They have these like weird on like twine strings, these little like cardboard boxes that look like very Japanese in some way. And I was like,
Yes.
"What is that? Is that is that holding like their pens and stuff?" And like inside is a gas mask,
Yeah.
and so they put the gas mask on, and they're kind of giving instructions on how to breathe, and like it just all sounds like farting noises. So it's a
Yeah.
very weird scene.
I actually looked this up. There's a few different names for those gas masks, but they were basically World War One vintage that they handed out to civilians.
Okay.
And yeah, if you didn't breathe through the flaps right, it did. I don't know what the one instruction said. It's like it can produce a whopping sound, or but it did sound like flatulence. Like I read some things. So the kids, of course, like they're having a ball because there's no nerve gas coming down. Well, that time it'd be mustard gas, but yeah, the war never got to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, of the NBC weapons, chemical weapons were not used. Now, biological weapons were used by the Japanese, and nuclear weapons were used by the aforementioned party. But yeah, that's
Those, yeah,
never used chemical.
there's almost like self-made psychological warfare because they're saying like the Germans are dropping like diseased rats with all the bombs and stuff like that,
Yeah.
which is, as far as I know, not true. But
Well, you know, the Germans in World War II had comprehensive. But they were the best chemists in the world at the time for World War II, and they had the best. Like they actually had nerve. They had nerve gas that we stole the formulas for and put in our own arsenal that we still use to this day, like sarin and Tauben. That's still like viable weapons to this day. Those were developed in World War II, but because Hitler got hit by mustard gas in World War One, that was always like his red line, like never against because he knew what it felt like.
yeah.
He was like, you can never use it. So even in the last desperate days when they were fighting the Russians, who they didn't consider human beings, they never used like, and if they had a bunch of it too, and it would have wiped them out. But they said, well, then they'll just use the same shit on us. But Hitler was always personally like, no, I know what that suffering is like. Yeah, but
That's
all
what
the
I
other,
have empathy for. That's where I draw the line.
yeah, throwing families into furnaces, like, no, that's fine.
Or gas.
Or gas, whatever.
Ironically.
I mean, I guess at least they bothered to kill them.
Just don't open gas people. If it's in an enclosure, it's fine. So,
Well, yeah, but see, that wasn't soldiers in war. That was Hitler's like red line.
yeah.
It was like, don't use it on civilians because they'll use it on us, and don't use it on honorable soldiers that are fighting, even though they're fighting the wrong war against us, unless they're Russians or whatever. But they wouldn't even use it on the Russians because they knew the Russians would use the same stuff back. And we know from the collapse of the Soviet Union that they loved chemical weapons, biological weapons, because they were desperately calling Bill Clinton, hey, do you know how to get rid of this stuff? It's like, sure, how much do you have? And 50 tons? Like, what? Well, that's 50 tons of nerve gas, you fucking lunatic. Why do you need to destroy it all at once? Well, it's not stored properly. Oh, my God.
I forget.
Yeah, anyway.
What was that concept that came up with a farm bomb or something like that? Because like the Russians like made more military equipment than food, and so we're gonna try to like find a way to make a bomb to create a farm.
Probably. Well, I speaking of farm bombs, I know like one way we caught them was because they had all these development centers where they had rooms, and they said, "Oh, this is to deliver pesticides to like farm fields and stuff like crop dusting." But U.S. military experts that got to inspect those rooms where they were testing these supposed like we're dropping, like pesticides or like. Yeah, no one uses clustering munitions to deliver pests. Like that's not. You're gonna destroy your wheat crop. Dropping these are clearly chemical, biological weapons delivery things, and the Russians are like, no, it's just for pesticides. Well, I've never heard of the pesticides being dropped through a cluster bomb, but cool. All right, so yeah. So they actually did say like all their agricultural research institutes and stuff were mostly to test weapons for delivering. Well, they were always trying to poison our crops, and of course we were also trying to poison theirs, but we did it a lot more subtly than they did. They just openly like ran tests and like, no, this is for pestilence mitigation or something. It's like, oh, okay, clearly not.
We cut to the next day. Bill and Sue watches as an anti-air air balloon is raised.
Yeah, these are called barrage balloons.
Okay. And what the cables are supposed to like catch up the planes or something like that? And
yeah, there's a few different ways they work. Because a lot of the German medium bombers had like very sharp edges on the wings that would cut through the cables. Because what would happen is you'd fly into the cables and then the bomb would get sucked down, or the balloon would get sucked down on you and get wrapped up in the works. And also they filled the bombs with hydrogen on purpose.
Okay.
Or the barrage balloons, they filled them halfway with hydrogen at the top and then regular air at the bottom. So they kind of had two separate spheres inside them.
Yeah.
So it would suck the barrage balloon down onto the plane, and it would like break open with the regular air. But then by the time it was doing damage, then here comes the explosive hydrogen gas, which these were actually quite effective because the bombers would just see them, and like I said, they had sharp edges on their wings, so sometimes they'd cut them, but usually they'd just evade them. They were mainly put up for dive bombers, but they're also very effective against the V1 buzz bombs.
Okay.
Because they were just dumb things that would just fly right into them. So if they could get enough of them up, they would get sucked up into the V1 and the hydrogen would explode. But usually they would just drag them down to the ground because they foul all their, what do they call those? Control surfaces, the flaps. So they would stop. But yeah, they were very effective against the dumb subsonic V1s. Not so much the V2s because those were supersonic, but yeah, these were barrage balloons, but they are dangerous because they're filled with hydrogen. So and designed to explode. That's but yeah, they were everywhere. They're ubiquitous. All over London, especially because it was kind of an effective way to. They didn't stop they couldn't get high enough to do the high altitude bombers, but the dive bombers they were good at, and they kind of kept people off. But the British actually figured out how to destroy dive bombers pretty effectively with how they array the AAA. Because the dive bomber is hard to stop when it's coming down at you because it presents a narrow profile and it's coming straight for you. But when it pulls up and has to turn, that's when they would just destroy him then. It's okay, you get to drop your 2 bombs and then you're going to lose a whole plane. And I forget what kind of dive bombers they were, but I think they cost like $250,000. They're very expensive planes. So Germans quickly figured out it's like, our win-loss ratio on those that's gonna bankrupt us. So they quit.
We cut to Bill's out scavenging while
one more thing: dive bombers have special equipment in them that when the pilot goes into the dive after the bomb's released, the plane will automatically pull up on it with an autopilot system that was connected to a altimeter.
Okay.
Because sometimes the pilots would pass out during the dive, but if they released the bomb, the plane would save their lives. But that kind of automation with World War II 30s tech was very expensive. So those dive weren't cheap. I don't think America ever had dive bombers. I don't think we developed that.
Oh, yeah, we had dive bombers in the Pacific.
Did we?
Yeah, that's how we hunted submarines and shit. We just used a Mustang to do it or whatever. Like, you just put it on there and have it dive.
Oh, yeah. The Germans had specific, like, they were built around dive bombing, though. That's all they did. They weren't air-to-air.
We just used the method with our current...
Yeah, but we didn't have purpose-built dive bomber, I believe. I think only the Germans had those.
Okay.
Because that's like the weird sound, the wah, like that was actually a sound effect thing they put on them.
Okay.
That screaming sound that like they even use that effect nowadays when like jets doing it. It's like having an A-10 like wah. It's like I don't think that they do that, but
Bill's out scavenging and some street kids take him hostage, where this is very brutal until it's not, so it's very weird, but I'm guessing whatever, maybe this just
you would never put this idea in this scene coming up in a movie nowadays because dumbass kid would do it.
Yeah. So yeah, they take him to some hideout where they have a bunch of ordnance, so like apparently this is prized possession of these street. Well, these aren't kids of the street, they're other kids in the neighborhood who have gone out gathering as well. But they've just
at this point half the set's been destroyed in the movie.
But yeah, they like hold him up and like they kind of rough him up a bit, but then they just hold him in front of a vise where they put a bullet in the vise, and a kid holds a nail and a hammer on the primer, and like they say, they'll let Bill join the gang, and if he says a swear word, so he says fuck, and then they said like that's the most cherished word, you shall say other things like bugger and other stuff like that.
British swear words. It's like piss off, you bugger, or something. It sounds like that doesn't sound like swear words, and you look up like what the word buggery means in the British vernacular, and like, oh, that's an ugly word.
Yeah, fanny is the big disconnect because it's here. It's like, there's a
Oh
fanny
yeah, man.
pack, but there it's like, don't talk about my pussy. um. So yeah, and they let him out of eyesight of the bullet, and he strikes it, and then they make it seem like a gun goes off here, which that's not really what would happen if because if the bullet's not in a chamber, it just kind of pops like a
Flash.
firecracker or something.
Yeah.
I haven't actually seen a bullet do that, so I don't know what it'll do, but I don't think it'll direct it straight forward. But like the way they're holding him, that might have either the blast or the bullet or whatever shrapnel could have done something to his eye. It was not a good situation.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in front of
No,
that
I
thing.
want to guess what happens, but it wouldn't be like a bullet. It wouldn't be like a rifle shooting a bullet. So,
I was wrong.
but
The U.S. Navy did have dedicated dive bombers.
okay.
Thank you, Dad. Got a tech.
um. So yeah, so once they let Bill join the gang, they run off and smash things, and they're bombed out hangout. And there's like, this is basically like a playhouse or a tree house. Like they've made contraptions to swing about. They've laid bedding on the floor so they can just leap from the second story onto the bedding down below. So
Oh yeah, these are like the pirate kids in
yeah,
what's that
Peter
thing
Pan.
called? Peter Pan. Yeah, this is like pure Peter Pan moment.
Yeah.
They're smashing up sinks with like pipes and stuff. And this is all stuff kids do. I did stuff like this. We
Yeah,
find abandoned places and like, let's
you ever,
burn it down.
You ever had to smash up a toilet or a sink?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
And
but wear eye protection. That will totally fuck up your day if you're not doing that. So.
Yeah, I got lucky. I never got that. I remember like the abandoned cars we used to shoot at with like 22s. And then you found out like a year later, hey, those cars weren't abandoned. Like, oh my God, okay. My bad. It's like, yeah, someone was mad as hell. They were looking for us. It's like, oh no. Really didn't mean to do that.
It looked ill cared of and didn't move.
Yeah.
Then we cut to everyone's out at the movies. There's a take shelter message that goes on the screen, and so they go outside where they see a dog fight, that's like the juxtaposition is that there was a dog fight on the movie, and they go outside presuming to take shelter, but nobody takes shelter because they watched the actual dog
fight. Production value here is insane.
And then they shoot down one of the German planes, and a German pilot parachutes to the ground and awkwardly awaits to be taken by the police, which this German pilot looks pretty young compared to everybody else here. That's where they kind of have the juxtaposition because like all the MPs are like 50 or 60-year-old men that can barely hold themselves up, and some people have shovels and like they don't know what to do. They're scared by the German pilot.
And this guy has a cigarette case from the golden age of smoking. He reaches in his jacket and pulls it out, and everyone's like, like he's gonna pull out a gun and start killing everybody. Cigarette and like taps it. And by the way, this was Charlie Borman, played the German.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, he lights up a butt, and then the guys, I don't know who the guy's like 60 or something, but he has like the cool like World War I mustache that those guys had at that time, and he's like, all right, come with me, and he's sort of reticent but trying to be brave at the same time, and he has one of those like those hats that the British wore, the pith helmet type thing, not a pith helmet, whatever those.
It's a bit more wider brim, but like still it's a metal hat. So
he's like an air raid marshal, I guess. I looked it up what he was supposed to be. But then there's a guy with him who has a helmet on just like it, but regular clothes. But he has a sledgehammer. And one guy has a shovel.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna mess this guy up, but they because they're British and they're ultimately like nice people. It's all right. Your war's over. Come have some tea.
Come be a prisoner of war. He
Be
talks very slowly and clearly to him. So
yeah.
And then Dawn kind of flirts with the pilot, which Grace slaps the shit out of her.
Yeah, like her mom just because she looks at him and smiles, and mom immediately like slaps her. Like you can't do that in front of the other ladies.
And then the women fawn over the parachute silk.
Yes.
Which is that?
Because women are just immediately lose their mind over silk.
Yeah. Well, also they know like, hey, we can make clothes with this because we've
Yeah.
all the silk has been taken for the war effort. So, because yeah, like yeah, this is where garters came back in a big way because you couldn't use nylons for stuff. Which, like, I think the next scene is where is this where Grace gets or where Dawn gets the nylon from, and she makes the stockings out of the parachute nylon. Okay,
So yeah.
okay, that's another weird
And,
scene.
and let me tell you, because a lot of people haven't had this experience in the modern age, but I have. Making your own clothes is kind of cool.
Yeah.
It does make you feel a certain way. But also when you wear it out in public and then you have a bunch of weird new friends that want to talk to you, like that's the bad part. Make that yourself? Yes, I did. Oh, well, can we talk about that for 30 minutes? I guess that's the social contract. I have to be nice, right? So, yeah, it's kind of cool to make your own stuff. Not very many people have that experience nowadays.
Yeah,
But
because like there's like this. The next scene is like Billy is like drawing a line up the nylon stockings that Dawn is making because like it's gonna make her stand out at this dance club for reasons I don't know. And then he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna stop here," and she's like, "Keep going." She's like, "Nobody's gonna see this anyways." That's a very awkward scene. But then we just cut out to her dancing with some soldiers. She gets insulted and slaps the guy and heads off because he says like, "Your nylons like they never end; they just go up your ass." So it's like, so I guess it worked for her, but she was like pretend to be insulted by that, I guess, because he ends up coming back.
Yeah, it's almost like all this war rationing, especially like in the UK in this movie, it's almost like these people are in prison or something.
Yeah.
Like people who would use Kool-Aid to make their lips look red, like they had lipstick and stuff. It's like they're doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, this is the sexy undergarments of mine are actually, what it was
Recovered parachute silk.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's actually the Germans called it Fallschirm, the best parachute silk, I guess. Because it was mostly nylon. It wasn't silk. It was all synthetic, but the Germans were the people who had the actual making of it. And because the Germans were very good at like synthetic fibers and stuff at that time. That's what it was amazing. That's like, oh, remember those uniforms you had in the Marines? Like the one that wasn't the full dress one, but it wasn't the casual one. What was that intermediate one?
Like the green one?
Yeah, the one that looked like it came from World War II.
Oh, that's the Bravos.
Yeah, okay. That it's all like wool.
Oh wait, no, sorry.
Cotton.
Those are alphas. Sorry, those are alphas.
Okay.
Because you have your
Yes.
blues, then you have your alphas, and then when it's more like a dress or it's more like a button-up shirt and pants, that's like your Charlies. So your alphas are like the green, looks like something out of World War II. I mean, the blues do too, but the alphas like specifically kind of has that.
Yeah, no, the ones you're talking about, like, because when you showed me, when you put that uniform on, it's like that looks like something straight out of World War II. Because it was all like wool and cotton.
Yes.
Because that's all we had.
Just
like we didn't have
wool and cotton.
we didn't have that synthetic stuff until after the war. It was all the Germans that had that. So that's why, like that, because I forget what we used for parachutes, but it wasn't the same kind of material.
Okay.
So that German parachutes, because again, they were the masters of chemistry, and somehow America became the masters of physics because like they made great chemicals, we made great atom bombs, but also we just made a lot.
We made a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff.
See how many airplanes we made? See how the most expensive airplanes in the world we made?
Yeah.
Germans made expensive stuff. They didn't make expensive stuff as fast as we did. So.
No.
Well, I mean, the planes are the most expensive part. We made tanks and artillery very quickly and cheaply. So. And
well, yeah, it's like how many, it's like it's like, because I know from like my modeling and all that stuff, it's like Tiger tanks are cool. It's like, yeah, all 2,000 of them. How many of those are left that function? Like one they had in Fury. That's the last one. You know how many Sherman tanks are driving around to this day? Probably 3,500 that you could jump and start and just drive down the street. Because we made so many of them.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, they couldn't defeat a Tiger, but 7 of them could. That was always the thing. And those bombers we made, that was crazy. We're making one every 24 minutes at one point. It's like, that's nuts. It's a lot of bombs.
Um, we cut to Billy has a nightmare about getting shot down in an airplane where his like dad's like talking to him through the radio.
Yeah, that was an odd one.
I think that's the end of the fantasy dreams. I don't think there's another one
No,
like that.
there's no more. Now it gets really rangy after this.
Yeah. But there's like a rapping sound in the dream, and Billy wakes to Dawn rapping on his window, and she shows up. She comes in and shows off the Canadian badge she ripped off the soldier. Then she sneaks back into bed, still in her dance clothes. And the air raid siren goes off again. Grace sees Dawn in her club clothes and admonishes her for it, but Dawn refuses to get out of bed. Grace and the kids head to the shelter, and we see like this blast wave rush through the house, and like we see like they just took like a leaf blower and like hit him in the mouth with it and stuff like that, and threw a bunch of shrapnel at him, and so, which I think in reality, if they got hit by a blast wave like that, they'd be dead. But we don't see like a bomb outside. Like it wasn't like the yard got hit with a bomb. It's just I don't know, just blast wave came at him. So
It's not as cool as the blast waves in like the Hurt Locker. Oh yeah, that weird like ambiguous like warbling in the air, like that's death. It's yeah,
or
they
like
did a really good job of that.
or like how the slow motion deaths happen in Dread.
Yeah. There were people's faces like pucker
Yeah,
because
or
like
their
a bullet's
midsection is like rippling before it falls apart. So.
yeah. Yeah, this was more like 80s style where we're gonna put a leaf blower in your face, which is actually very dangerous too. You could lose an eye doing that.
Yeah.
You don't want to be a pug, or sometimes they bark and their eyeballs fall out. It's like I never want one of those if that's gonna happen.
Dawn gets out of the house, and there's like a weird argument with Grace about like you never wanted me.
Yeah, it's just like, am I the reason you married Dad? Like in the middle of a bombing raid,
Yes.
we're gonna have this conversation. It's like, oh, okay.
Which one of those things like this seems uncomfortable and pointless, but it was probably true to Charlie Borman's life or John Borman's life, and so it's like, yeah, included. That's the truth. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, people never pick like the rational times. Like, we're gonna hash out this thing in our family that's been going on for like, I don't know, how old did you say she was?
15? Yeah.
Yeah, so 15 years of thought. Now that the bombs are falling, we're going to hash this out. It's like that actually does happen in real life.
Yeah.
It seems ridiculous from the outside, but from the inside, it's like, hey, I might die. I need to get this out of my system. It's like, oh, okay.
This is the worst therapy session in the world.
I could never imagine like planning this out, but randomly, it's like, oh, yeah, I can see this.
We cut to Billy.
I've never been in a bombing raid, so and hopefully I never will. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I like why our marriage worked and why it didn't. It's like we're about to die. It's like I need to say this.
It's the next day. Billy goes out where this is what I mean. I can't remember the name. The kid who's like the leader of the gang. He's very annoying. He comes up and he's like, Pauline's mother was killed last night. He's like, you lie. And then he's like, she's right there, ask her. And they go like shuffle up to Pauline. It's like, hey Pauline, your mom's dead, right? And she's like, yeah. It's like, this is like,
yeah.
It's like so insensitive, but like, it's kids, so they don't know how to handle this shit. So yeah.
Yeah, they're not like, it's like, well, we should like really be there for Pauline. It's like, did your mom die? It's like, yeah, it's like, oh wow.
Freedom.
Right now. He won't tell you what to do now.
It's actually perfectly in line with that kid, especially at the end of the movie. Like that's how he thinks. It's like
yeah, oh yeah. And Grandpa like helps him, like, yeah, this is great. This is the best thing that's ever happened.
But here they like, I don't know, I guess John makes himself look good because like in all instances where we can have Billy be like bad, we have him like be sort of sensitive. So, but Billy won't go up to Pauline herself to be like, hey, do you want to play? He forces his sister to go up to her because she's a girl and girls talk to girls, and that's how this works.
Yeah. Girl code.
um, but Pauline doesn't,
Don't talk to a woman. There you go. There's always something wrong with them. That's what. Pull down your knickers. Let us see. It's weird. I said knickers, by the way. Don't lose your minds.
Pauline goes to play or doesn't want to play with them, and so she doesn't know what to do with herself, so she kind of just stands there. And then like an MP comes up and like tries to like take Pauline away. It's like, no, this is my house. So I actually I don't know where like Pauline's still around for a couple more scenes, so I don't know where she's actually taken to or left to. So, but she's still in the neighborhood.
It just kind of shows that the adults who beat and subjugate children, in this case, like, okay, I'll let her have this one because her mom's dead. You know, it's only okay because it's like, don't call me by my first name though.
But also, like, she's like, I don't know what age group she's supposed to be in. I don't know if she's supposed to be like Billy's contemporary, but she's like really tall, but she's also not. She's not great. She's not Dawn's age, so she's also like out of place in that way too. Like, she doesn't have any kids of her own age around, so she wouldn't want to play with. She wouldn't want to play around with Billy and Sue because they're too young to play around with. It wouldn't be fun. She probably wants somebody to talk to or whatever.
Yeah, she has things to deal with.
You want to play with Tin Soldier, Pauline? Go fuck yourself, Billy.
Yeah, this you want to play nuclear family? It's like there's mom and dad, and it's like, oh well, no, not for Paul. Cool.
I mean, they just say Pauline's mom died, so I'm guessing the other part of that is her dad's off at war, or is he dead as well?
Or he's a clerk for the army, or whatever weird stuff they had him doing back then.
Yeah. So yeah, we cut to the. Oh yeah, we're at the family house. They start cleaning up the house after the near miss because now there's just the doors are blown open. There's shrapnel all over the place. There's dust over the piano, but Grace dusts off the piano and starts playing some music, and there's kind of a little music routine here as Dawn sings. Then Grace starts playing, I think, Moonlight Sonata or something close to that.
Something like that. Yeah, I tried to look it up, but I couldn't find it.
Well, yeah, the Moonlight Sonata is like that. Dun, 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 dun. I'd play it if I remembered how to play it, but I can't. So.
Yeah.
And plus, it would take me a half an hour to get that thing going on the stream. So we'll do that. We get like a kind of a long shot of more of Britain in rubble. So yeah, this is just like kind of taking the toll of the neighborhood, which is, like you said, it's like half knocked down by now.
At this point, we're 75% done with the set.
Okay,
so.
all right. The gang are messing around with like baking soda or something. They're putting some chemical in like bottles and it's fizzing.
Vinegar and baking soda.
Okay, yeah, just the volcano.
It's supposed to represent like some kind of strong alcohol that the adult
Pauline shows up at the hideout to try to, I guess, like hang out with the kids, and like they take her hostage. And again, this seems like cruel. And then like they'll let her in the gang if she like lets them look in her pants, and so she just like, all right, line up. And then she just see her like hold their pants open with kids line up one by one to look in, and then she slaps them each as they get a look, and then they go away. But Billy refuses because we have to have Billy be the protagonist, so he can't be taking advantage of women. So
yeah, which is a weird scene by today's standards, but understand it's all children. It's all 9 to 12-year-old boys in a time where there is no internet or nudie magazines. Yeah, so they would be like, that's the only chance.
There's no adults around taking advantage of her, so it's just they're just all stupid kids. So but also it's like I don't think we ever see like Pauline ever hanging out with them ever again. So I don't know. I don't know what purpose she came here for or what she planned to get out of it. It seems more of a scene to like make Billy like give Billy empathy, so being that he's the lead of the movie. So
yeah, he's the best of the children of the Island of Misfit Toys children.
Yeah,
that are running through the rubble of East London.
Um,
He's the decent one who won't look at a the underage girl's pants.
yeah.
It's like, oh, she made it.
Uh, we cut to they go out scrounging again. Billy finds his sister having sex with the Canadian soldier guy.
Yeah,
Um, he starts throwing rocks at the guy, and he calls out "fuck," and then this gathers all the children because like he
yeah. I
said the
like that.
magic word.
It's like the summoning word.
Yeah,
It just come from the ground.
yeah. Gracie's. Oh yeah. So yeah, they throw rocks at him until they run away, and then one of the kids like, "Isn't that your sister, Billy?" Or they don't call him Billy; they call him by his last name. They call him Rowan. So
Yeah.
and he's like, "No."
Just keep throwing giant rocks at them. No one's going to get a concussion. Yeah. Throwing baseball-sized rocks at them. But he's just angry at this guy.
Yeah.
He's like, he's doing something awful with my sister.
Uh,
Stone him to death.
then we cut to it's night. Grace sees Dawn going out at night and beats up Dawn and refuses to let her go. Which I don't know if there's something where like Grace sees herself and her daughter here, where it's like, yeah, that's what I did. You're not doing that. You're not getting knocked up when you're 15.
That's exactly what's going on.
And then they
And
like,
her daughter knows it too because she was asking her earlier. It's like, am I why you're with dad? Remember that from like
yeah.
2 weeks ago? Yeah. So yeah.
And then they hug and cry. It's all very stupid. I mean, like logically, not you can understand that emotions get this way. So,
I call stuff like that how men write female characters. Sometimes they have that. It's like we're going to go through this extreme emotional, violence,
yeah.
and then everyone's gonna hug it out, and it's like that's.
Well, I mean, that's
always,
like, well, again, that was depicted in like 60s and 70s movies where like you get in a fist fight with a guy and then you hang out and drink with him afterwards. And
yeah.
it's like,
But for men, we can understand that. But it's men writing female characters, we just write that into them, but they like cry and hug, where men will like beat each other's heads in and then do shots.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
not going to cry and hug, but they're going to do shots, and they're going to go like commit another crime
Yeah.
or something.
We can both hate something else together. Let's join forces. Grace capitulates to let her out. She says if it's love, she should bring him home. But then Dawn says, who said anything about love? So apparently just all Dawn wants is sex. And so she wants her mom to approve of it.
Mother, I'm horny. I'm very randy for this lad.
We might die any day. It's like, yeah, you're right. So go
We've
and
got to get it in. Yeah, baby. We're just gonna do Austin Powers for the emerging female sexuality of this character. Who wants to shag, baby? Like, yeah, that's British sexuality to us.
I mean, yeah, they do imply she's having sex with lots of people, but she only has sex with one guy in this movie. So
Yeah, no.
who's still like
Everyone
probably
has to
70.
moan in the rubble.
Yeah.
That's what they should call this, moaning in the rubble.
We cut to Clive is back home and like frozen from riding a motorcycle in the snow.
Which I've done that, and you do get that cold. No, but in like minus
Yeah.
40. Yeah, it's really
Which
bad.
I thought like this is all played for comedy, and I thought he was like doing it for comedy, and then when they like are having the warm water to put his feet in, it's like, oh no, that's all real. So yeah.
No, it's true. I did it once. It's the closest I've ever come to. I probably had hypothermia. I never drank so much black coffee in my life. This guy just kept pouring it in the cup. You want more? It's like, yeah, it's feel my face. I definitely want more. That's northern Michigan in September. Yeah, we can do this ride. And then the sun goes down, and it's just like it's kind of like that movie Riddick, where the planet burns.
Yeah.
As the sun sets, it's like the planet freezes in northern Michigan. And you're like, no, I'm cool. I'm the king of the road. Like an hour later, you're like, I might die. I'm not gonna make it.
So I forget what the specifics are here. Clive was like trained to be, I don't know, infantry or something, but like when he completed training, he was too old to be that job. And so,
Well, no, he was trying to get an officer's commission because he did infantry in World War I, but he started at a certain age, and by the time he finished, he was legally too old to get an officer's commission or fight. So they said, "Well, you're a clerk,"
Yeah.
or as they say it, a clerk. It's like you're a typist, and so he got like compassionate leave to go home because stuff had happened with his family. But yeah, so essentially he was like kind of a bubble guy.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's true or not. I think
I think you would let things go at that time if you're desperate for people. So
because you'd want an adult that could lead very young men. It's like, yeah, put this guy behind a rifle because he's not going to panic because he already went through this in World War One.
Yeah,
for the story, it just drives the narrative.
Yeah. Or that's what actually happened to John Borman's dad.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could. Yeah, the British love bureaucracy and rules. Also, this gives me power and meaning. I'm a small cog in a big machine.
So I don't know if he was like training overseas or just in a place but his group found like a supply of German jam, and so he confiscated some of it.
No, a ship got torpedoed and the jam kept rolling into the shore.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so that's where they found this. So he was in the UK the whole time, just training. Yeah.
And so there's contention about eating the jam because she's like, it could be poisoned, which that's the paranoia is brought up constantly here about all the things, other things that could be happening. So
yeah, because there's a bunch of people spreading rumors and no information.
Yeah.
Because remember, you're not texting to your friends like, "Hey, guess what I heard?"
Your internet's at the movie theater.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, can you get your Starlink going so we can have Wi-Fi? These people didn't know their ass from a hole in the
ground. Then Clive just starts eating a bunch of the jam, which then makes everyone hungry as they like lick their lips, and then and even Dawn is like, I don't even like jam, and then eventually everyone's eating jam. So they have a lot of bread there to put jam on. So
yeah, that was like a month's ration of bread they were eating. And it was German jam, but like at the end of the scene, he was like, "Jam's the same no matter who you are." Unifying moment almost. Even the Germans like jam.
The thing that actually made me worried is like the can opener he has like leaves a lot of jagged edges. And then like that the Canadian soldier just like dips his finger in. Is like, the fuck are you doing, man? Get a spoon.
Yeah, you're gonna get tetanus. What are you doing?
Yeah, that can's rusty. So.
Yeah, can's mostly lead and tetanus. Yeah, old school can openers. I mean, if you used them right, they actually worked like modern can openers, but almost nobody used them right.
Yeah.
You're just like stabbing into it and like, get this open before I starve to death.
Yeah, you ever have to use the can opener on a Swiss Army knife? It's like the worst thing.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's like, well, I'm getting cut.
I mean, if you get a groove going, you can kind of just do this like almost scissor motion and turn, and you never get a jagged edge, but you just almost always end up with jagged edges anyway. So.
Oh, we always did this stupid shit where we'd go buy MREs from the like Army surplus store, and they had the little can opener that like was like two pieces of metal, and it flipped open like this.
Yeah.
And you just went along the edges, and yeah, it's like, yeah, you're getting cut. And you're drinking, and you're eating like a Vietnam era, like, tuna ration or whatever. We were 10. It didn't matter. It was cool.
Yeah. Clive has been repurposed to be a clerk. The Canadian
Clark.
Huh? Oh yes, Clark. Yes.
Yeah.
The Canadian soldier boyfriend is introduced to Clive, like, who he fakes being poisoned when he eats the jam. Also, like when he introduces himself, like Clive kind of like undercuts himself. He's like, "I'm just a private corporal." So, because
he starts to like do a salute, and he's like, "No, I'm private corporal." It's like...
Then we cut to Clive, Mac, and Billy go around observing the revel. I forget what they're talking about, but they're just kind of reminiscing. The air raid balloon has come loose and it's like bouncing around the neighborhood, which this becomes like a whimsical moment for the neighborhood. And then soldiers come out and shoot the balloon and make it explode, and everyone's like, "Why'd you do that? Our fun." So...
Yeah, that's the home guard. It's like the 60-year-old guys with like rifles come out and shoot it.
Yeah.
But the reason they do is because it's like full of hydrogen.
Yeah.
It's like it's gonna be whimsical if it lands and
Yeah.
explodes.
Then we cut to it's night. Dawn and Bruce sneak in through the window, and then we see like Dawn and Bruce having sex through a keyhole, which Billy and Sue sneak peeks at, and even they like. It's like, oh, even Sue's like, they're moving around too much. Like when Dad does it to Mom, she stays still.
I must have not paid attention to that part of it.
Oh yeah, it's weird. This is all weird. All the sex stuff in this movie's weird, but
Oh yeah.
it's
What's children's
yeah,
interpretation of
it's all coming of age movie stuff. That's always a part of it. So,
yeah, because Billy's not like Mom's dead in the sack. It's like no, nobody says that. That comes later.
We cut to they're all at the theater. They're watching some movie where a guy is like going off to war and his wife stays behind on the train. I don't think this is an actual movie from the time. It looks too modern. They probably just shot it for the movie. So
Yeah, it was probably like reminiscent of the time.
yeah, I mean that scene is like in tons of movies. So.
Yeah. That happened a lot back then.
Then we cut to Grace and her friends are thrifting out for clothes. Here's where like they talk about sex for a moment, where it's like, this is weird because her Grace's friend is like, yeah, I like when they do it to you in the middle of the night and it feels like a dream. And it's like we call that rape nowadays, but all right. But then it's implied that like she says she hasn't had sex with her husband for years, and so she's implying she's having sex with a different man. And then like Grace is like, "Wait, you can do that?" It's like, "Oh, you lie," and she's like, "Am I?" And so it's just more just the British horny women of so
Yeah.
the Sex in the City of Britain in World War II.
Well, I mean, I know some people who have been through divorces, and you know, I've always asked them like, "Hey, what are the lawyers?" Because I'm always curious about the lawyers, and it's like the first question they ask is like, "How long has it been since you've had sex?" And they're like, "Oh, 3 years." And it's like, "Okay, who's he having sex with then?" Nobody's in a sexless marriage for 3 years. You know, that doesn't happen until you like really get a lot older. These are people in their 40s, and it's like, oh, okay, that's clearly. Like a valid question actual lawyers have asked. Like, oh, okay, that's a dark way of looking at the world.
Billy's kind of drifting about through the thrift shop, and he gets caught by some girls and like is sillily slapped. And then
Yeah,
it was, and like his sister is a part of it too. It's like Pauline, his sister, and a couple other girls. And then like weirdly,
yeah, because he's looking at different clothes, and, like arguing about
yeah,
it.
he runs across older women in their underwear, and then runs across younger women, and they attack him, but like sillily. So, we got to the family go out to a concert, except Clive isn't there. Grace is very excited about like the performance, and here she's with Mac, and so she's like, I haven't done this in like forever. So this is where they start to build like she has feelings for Mac because he's just there, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we'll find out later they had a relationship that probably resulted in Dawn. So,
Yeah, that was always kind of interesting. Like they never really, um, oh, they never really sussed that out. It's just kind of in the air.
yeah.
Like, are we going to get resolution on this? It's like, no, they don't have DNA yet. It's like, all right.
So yeah, they get back home. The family and neighbors are listening to the King's speech. Well, I guess it's just family. They even mention out like, he's getting better at talking now, which that's what the whole movie, the King's speech, is about. The king has a lisp, so or not a lisp, speech impediment.
Yeah.
We see Bruce making jokes outside during God Saves the Queen, which he can't hear it, so he doesn't know that he's like making everyone mad. But then it just doesn't matter. It's like, oh, he's a jokester and a Canadian, so we'll let him go. Then we cut to like there's some like cross-dressing show for the group at night. They just they don't have TV. They got to entertain themselves. And then Grandpa's drunk and starts like going off on something. I don't know what the hell he's talking about here. Do you do, do you recall anything that he's talking about? He talks about some woman's bosom, and then that's about all I remember. But he's like listing off names, and I thought he was like talking about dead people, and then actually I realized don't know any idea what he's talking about. So
I wrote this as Grandpa's good old days. Like in my notes, it's like Grandpa reminiscing about the good old days, but in a very random, like incoherent way.
yeah.
It's like these are all the cool things I remember from the last 60 years, all kind of crammed together in one thing. So Grandpa is essentially being incoherent.
Yeah, it's implied he does this every year, so it's like, oh,
Yeah.
not again.
Yeah. I do
Bruce.
like all the women breaking out violins, though. That's it. Like, oh, these people are all like, Olympic class violin players all of a sudden.
Yeah, again, if you don't have TV, you're not sitting by the radio all the time. You got to entertain yourself. So everyone's a musician. So
Yeah.
Bruce.
Well, that's the first rule of high class hillbilly idiots is, the high class hillbillies is like everyone learns how to play a musical instrument.
Yeah.
Like everything else is screwed, but you do learn how to play an instrument. That's like Tom Petty said that. Like,
Yeah.
he would know. It's like, yeah, that's where he's from. So it's like, oh, okay, cool. So they must have had this in the UK back then too.
Bruce is being shipped out tomorrow. He proposes marriage. Dawn denies it, thinking that like he's just going to meet some French girl in the war, and so she throws away the ring. Or no, he throws away the ring, and they kind of leave on a bad note. And we cut to the next day. Clive takes Dawn to try and catch Bruce to see him off, and like they don't meet each other. And then she literally does get a bad note from him, so so that's for all we know.
She gets a Dear John letter, which is kind of like a verse of the usual story.
Yeah. That would be in the act 2. We cut to act 3. Family day at the beach. Grace does a handstand at the beach. Just trying to recapture a youth, I guess. There's some artillery off in the distance where they say this is Big Bertha like firing at France or something like that.
Yeah, it's some World War I gun.
And they mentioned that like it costs like $40,000 for every shell they fire or something like that. And like, how are we gonna pay for that? It's like, we're not. You're gonna pay for it for the rest of your lives.
Yeah, so in that way they explain the like Reagan era weapons buildup time. So.
And then the kids are just digging holes. We cut to they're on a train. Clive just disappears, right? Or is he sleeping in the train car here?
I think he falls asleep in the train car.
Okay, I just
Clive is intoxicated a lot in the last movie.
Because this is where basically Mac and Grace like catch up and like it's like, hey, should we be together? And I felt it would be weird if Clive was in the train car with them, and I wasn't sure if they were or not, but I guess he is.
Yeah, he's conveniently intoxicated while they work out, their plans for infidelity.
Yeah, and this
is a very thing.
This is where it's implied that they used to be together, and implying that Dawn is their kid, and Grace only married Clive because he had a job, which is like, what was Mac doing?
He was doing the what was the modern? He was being the Mac daddy. It's cool. 80 years before it mattered.
They get back home, and the home is on fire. Dawn got out in time because she didn't go to the beach with everybody else. And this is like,
we never know why either.
Oh, I mean, she just asks the fire marshal like, what happened. He's just like, things catch fire sometimes. It's like it happens.
But it wasn't from bombing.
No, it wasn't. That's the specific point of it. It's like that's supposed to be like the extra cruelty of like it just went on fire on electrical or whatever, or
yeah, we had a house fire, but it wasn't for the cool reason.
No.
It was like, oh, we're just incompetent or something.
Yeah, you're not.
Or it's electrical.
Yeah. There will be no sympathy paid towards you because it wasn't because of the war. It's your fault somehow, probably. So.
Yeah, it's your fault for being silly women.
But we know, like, all the electrical in Britain is crazy, so like any house fire can happen. So.
Yeah, let's run 480 right into the house. Yeah, what's your washer run at? Like at 10,000 volts. Really get some stuff clean. It's like, why does your cell phone charger as big as my dryer plug? Step it down like 10 times. It's like, oh, okay. Trust me, I've seen UK cell phone chargers. It's nuts.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like bigger than the phone. And I mean like the smartphones
yeah.
of today. It's like huge. It's like holy crap.
The family come back. It's the next day. The family come back to the burnt house. Like they see the gang of kids going through it. Billy just runs up and punches out the leader, and then like all the kids run off. Well, they taunt the family too. They're like trying to steal like a tricycle bike or something with a basket on it, and then they stop stealing it and just
Yeah,
run
it was
off.
his sister, younger sister's tricycle
Yeah.
basket.
Um.
I mean, everyone wanted to see the leader of the the children,
Misfit children.
yeah, the misfit children. Everyone wanted to see that kid beaten.
Yeah.
So having Billy beat him was like the most satisfying.
Yeah.
'Cause he beats that kid for like 5 minutes before the one guy like, hey, it's enough, but not really very enthusiastically. Like, yeah, kick him in the jaw one more time. Get off him.
Then we cut to the family heads off to live with the grandparents, which this is Grace's parents, which they seem to be of wealth or something, or maybe just inherited. That's the thing. That's the weird fucking thing in Britain, is that like everyone's poor but has a family history of secret wealth.
Yeah. Well, the way I understand it, if you can live in the county or in the country, you're well off, which means you can drive a car like 40 miles.
Well,
That's well off.
I am reminded because like there's like every once in a while there's an argument in F1 because F1 is basically like might as well be all royalty people like racing cars in their spare
Yeah,
time.
F1 is just Europe's class warfare in like cars.
And so people, so like because there's been more escalation in the popularity of the sport, like it starts to get Americanized, and so the Americans want to know, it's like, all right, who's the fucking poorest F1 driver? And so they immediately look at Lewis Hamilton. It's like, well, he's black, he's got to be the poorest driver.
Yeah.
And like not necessarily because like he didn't have all the advantages. He wasn't royalty. He didn't have coming from advantages, but he had a white mom who had weird connection to weirdly rich people, and she gave her his father, her ex-husband, $10,000 to work on his go-kart racing career, and they still had to struggle, but they did have $10,000 to work with. So in the in the early 90s, so that wasn't nothing, but it was like but they always point to like oh crap, I'm forgetting his name. Kimi Räikkönen. Like he grew up in a house. He's like Finnish. He grew up in a house without plumbing, and like he basically through talent and people recognizing his talent and getting sponsorships, that's how he financed his entire career. He never had money of his own to race with. He always through his talent got money from other people. So
Okay.
But anyways, that's
Yeah.
that's where I found out about the weird secret wealth of everyone's poor and but can get wealth somehow in Britain. So if they call upon their white ancestry, so.
Yeah. Call upon the spirits of the white ancestors. Oh, great white father, rain cast down upon me. I mean, that's one thing America did leave behind is class. Now we still have
coming back though. So
no, it's not.
No, it is. No, man, Nathan. Sports used to be a portal of where poor people could become rich. It is no longer that. Because now sports is sports medicine. You have to be doing it the entire time. The only way you can do it the entire time is if you have the free time and money to do it. So all your athletes now are basically rich people already. There's not really poor athletes anymore.
My point was not like sports. It was like, yeah, there's no class in America. It's just if you can make money, you're automatically bought in.
Yeah.
But you don't have to have like
there's not like a
royal lineage.
No. Yeah, lineage is.
No, you can be complete foreigners.
If you get the money, you're in, but you don't have to be from a specific place or.
No, we don't have a European concept of class. We have rich and poor, which we're really striated.
That's a very nice or not nice, but a specific distinction. So.
Yeah, no, if you have the money, you're here.
Yeah.
Or you can be like Elon Musk, where your dad owns an emerald mine, and it's like, oh, I was a poor boy who built this all myself. It's like, yeah, dad has a diamond or emerald mine in their background that, like, my dad hit me. It's like, yeah, he was also a millionaire, so you're fine. It's like, I had a tough story. I came up from nothing.
But I just find it weird now that like sports athletes and actors, which used to be a place where it's like the talent would rise up and like you can come from all backgrounds, and now it's basically like were your parents rich, then that's the only way you're getting an opportunity because
Oh yeah,
that's the only person who has time to work on a craft is somebody who comes from wealthy families.
yeah. That's how you know you're in an end phase of an empire, when that becomes like the like no one can, the whole bootstraps. And it was always a matter of luck and not like anything you could make happen. Like, yeah, when that's completely cut loose and just a complete fantasy, that's how you know you're at the end of something, not the beginning.
And that's not to say that these nepo babies aren't talented. It's just that they had they also had all the opportunity. So
Yeah.
that's um let's see here. Oh yeah, so yeah, we cut to Billy like comes back from swimming, and Dawn thinks she's pregnant because she's looking at her belly, and then she's like, listen to this, and she's like, oh, your head's cold, you might cause a miscarriage. Wait, get back here, let's cause a miscarriage. Like that's a weird joke, but whatever. So, then we go to the breakfast table, and Grandpa tries to shoot a rat from the dining table. So this is all. Yeah. Luckily, everyone's closing the ear, but everyone would have hearing damage after that. It's like shotgun
Yeah.
in an enclosed space. Yeah, so.
I do like the dinner shotgun. I want to bring that tradition back. Firing off weapons at a family, dining. It's like, hold on, everyone.
Do you think the grandpa is just like caught in his own ways and like drunk all the time, or you think he's like being succumbing to some sort of dementia or whatever, and everyone's just like going along with it?
No, I think Grandpa's dead sober the whole time. And it's just the world that makes sense to him, and he is going to constantly campaign for that.
Okay. Hey,
Everything,
he has a lot
every
of MAGA energy.
well, grandfather has an understanding of the world that's like 40 years before the 30s.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, this still makes sense because everything sucks now. It's that kind of logic.
The
It's like,
world's
no,
come back to him.
yeah, exactly. He can prove it. Damn it. He has a house in the country and a car and a bunch of illegal gas that he can use to drive it around. So that's how he's won. It's like, no, this isn't like proceeds from a criminal activity. No, this is the British way.
There's a visit from like all of Grace's sisters, which is where like the grandpa says like because none of their husbands are there because presumably they're off doing other things or war stuff. But then he says like none of them are good or worth anything. So it's like
Yeah.
Billy plays cricket with grandpa. Here, Billy bowls a googly, which is supposed to be impossible for a kid his size, and so the grandpa's kind of really impressed with this. Like, where'd you learn that? Like, you're a natural. So, and then we cut to Billy and Sue head out in the boat to catch some fish, where they like park it over like a waterfall and just like whether they just like have the fish jump in the boat or something like that.
Yeah, it seems to involve a net and him just grabbing fish and throwing them in the boat.
They got a lot of fish,
Oh,
so.
neat there, yeah.
Then we cut to like they're just like all the kids, including Dawn, are just in the boat going about. We see that she's like fully pregnant now. We see Bruce like tracking them down, and he swims out to Dawn. He says he deserted her to be with her because apparently she sent him a note that she's pregnant. She hits him in the head, which he pretends like it made him drown, and then he like pops up out of the water, and like they end up kissing. We cut to there's a marriage ceremony as Bruce is taken after it's done. Bruce is immediately taken away by the Canadian MPs and put back into service, which I don't think we ever see him again, so we don't know the fate of Bruce. So, actually I can't remember. He might be in that. He might be there at the end of the movie.
He dies on D-Day.
he, he took a bullet so Scotty could live.
He's the reason Scotty only had like 4 fingers on his.
We cut to Clive is back from service or whatever. Grace has found a place to rent on the river because they want to live on the river now. Grandpa challenges Clive to a game of cricket. So it's like Clive and Mac versus Grandpa and Billy. And here Billy throws a googly, which Clive can't quite believe. Like I didn't know you could do. Like I taught you that. And now he's like really proud of Billy.
You matter again.
You matter when I'm drunk. You know how hard that's it too. So. And then we go inside the house, and Dawn is like going to labor, like behind the couch, and she just gives birth standing up as Billy faints. So it's like that's hardcore. So,
Yeah, that was a little rough.
I don't know how you can keep your legs giving birth, but yeah, then we cut to it's like the next day or something, and Billy steals an apple for the baby, which he gets chased by a dog for like a moment, but then he gets away. We cut to Grandpa drop. All right, yeah. So yeah, he gives the apple to Dawn. But I read something in the Wikipedia that said like this is like Dawn's journey throughout this movie is her being like rebellious against her family and then like end up like needing to rely upon them and actually like finding her family again through irresponsible sex and a baby. So
yeah, that's how it works. That's the best way.
Yeah, just like 16 and pregnant. Yeah, so here we cut to like Billy has to still go to his old school because hasn't transitioned to the new school in the country yet, and so Grandpa goes to drop Billy off at school where he sees the kids are rejoicing as the school has been blown up by a bomb. And here's where we get like the leader of the misfit kids. Like he like looks to the heavens and like puts his hands up and says, "Thank you, Adolf." Like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, this kid's fucking awful.
He's so happy.
And Billy goes and runs and grabs Grandpa. And they just kind of have like this like they're just like laughing in the car because like before he lets him out, he's basically this is where he's like going full MAGA where he's like, "Oh, that institution, teaching you all the wrong things," and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
he yells that at the headmaster. He's like, yeah, it's like you just teach. Yeah, I forget what he says, but he's like you're just filling their heads with poison, essentially. It's the drag queen story hour is ruining fire.
But yeah, so like they're in the car just laughing, and then there's a voiceover saying that like he never felt a joy quite like this ever again, which actually seems like super sad. But I guess memories from childhood can be a lot brighter than than your later memories.
The brightest memories.
Yeah, so
yeah, because the quote is, "In all my life, nothing ever quite matched the perfect joy of that moment. My school lay in ruins." Beckoned with the promise of stolen days. And then they play that song I was saying the lyrics to earlier. The Land of Hope and Glory.
Which is what the name of this movie comes from. So.
Yes.
And that
which incidentally was also the same song they played in 1984. They didn't play that song, but when the children were singing on the train when Winston was going out to the countryside to have sex with Julia. It's like when they were singing "We Are the Children, Soldiers of the Future." It was the same music, just different lyrics.
Okay. And but that is the end of Hope and Glory. So.
Yeah. The most Oscar-nominated John Borman film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess what was in competition that year? We'll have to look.
Oh, that was a rough year. The Last Emperor basically swept picture and director. And then he had Moonstruck, which was like the big share vehicle. And then he had Michael Douglas in Wall Street, the original Wall Street. So,
hey, the Beast came out that year.
yeah. And then he had Sean Connery as the supporting actor. So yeah, Hope and Glory was some stiff competition.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really seeing I can see some famous movies, but not really movies I'd say that were Oscar worthy necessarily.
I've never watched The Last Emperor, so
I
I
mean,
know it won a
that's a
bunch.
Scorsese movie, right?
I think so.
So yeah, it's probably fine.
Yeah, I've never watched it. No reason. I just never watched it.
Um, well,
I don't know much about Chinese history. I need to become more familiar with it. I think it's going to become more pertinent in our lives as time goes on.
was that China or is that Tibet?
It was in China.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was like the Forbidden City and the Last Emperor of China and all
Oh, okay,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Did he also do a Tibet movie?
Who did the Tibet
Is that
movie?
Kundun? Is that the one with Keanu Reeves in Tibet?
That might be. I don't know. I'm woefully in anything that's not Japanese. I'm woefully inadequate on. So, and the only Japanese stuff I know is the World War II stuff. So,
Kundun is a 1997 American epic biographical film directed by Scorsese, based on the life and writings of Tenzin Gatsu, the 14th Dalai Lama. So yeah. Well, we're setting a program states containing the supercut of the scenes from the imperfect collection that is the Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what one scene from this movie are you chucking into space?
the first air raid sequence where they're hiding in the Harry Potter hate room,
Okay.
because that encapsulates the paranoia, the doubt, the fear, and the hope of the whole movie.
Okay. um, and then you can find us on Letterboxd, username VHE. 1 out of 5 stars. What are we giving Hope and Glory?
I'm gonna give it 4
Okay.
for kind of being
It's inconsistent, but it's like a raw and real like
yeah.
showing of the time. So
Well, it's one of the most British things I've ever seen in a long time.
that
Where it's like, yeah, this was our lives, these were our times, and there was good times and bad times, but it was mostly bad. Uh, what's that from? That's something Red Letter Media did. Times, bad times, but mostly bad. It was one of those things.
You can find us at verhoeffect.com. There we have listener support. You can support us at a month's time on 99 cents, 4.99 or 9.99. Cancel any time. You can rate our podcast on whatever platform of choice. You can rate us when you want. The only thing the algorithm listens to is the highest rating. So give us the highest rating and let's destroy the algorithm for our own inane purposes of
Yeah, let's destroy it.
personal wealth and attention. So, you can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us at Blue Sky Social at Verhoeven Effect. And you can find us at Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. And you can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory. Watch both this and that show live and unedited. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.